Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome here to Chicagoland Speedway as we are ready for another edition of the Clutch Drop Cup Series here on the Flatout Racing Network. It's the penultimate race of the year before we head to the season finale at Charlotte next week. 8 drivers vying for 4 spots in the Championship 4 at Charlotte Motor Speedway. And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome inside the FRN broadcast booth. I'm Carlos Zimmerman, joined tonight alongside my good friend Seth Cole. Seth, a lot of scenarios playing tonight. Nobody is safe. We were just talking about it pre-race. No one is safe from elimination tonight. It could be any of our top 8 that remain that could end up on the outside of the top 4 by the end of the night. You never know what's going to happen at a track here at Chicagoland. A long one tonight, 180 laps around the mile.
Yeah, and Chicagoland is such an unusual track to have as the next to last race of the season to set that Final Four because there's so many variables that can happen here. You can end up having a race where you have multi-groove racing. Long green flag runs usually take place, so we'll usually see fuel strategy in the final 80-lap stint as you've got 2 50-lap stages to lead us up to that point. And as you said, nobody is safe. The points are really close. The only driver that right now is locked in to the Final Four is Dylan Stipe, winning last week at Talladega. But if you go from second place Justin Munsell all the way down to 8th place Brandon King, there's only 10 point separation. So this race could go one of 2 ways for those 7 drivers. One, a driver could really struggle in the first 2 stages and not get stage points and be kind of out of it before we even get to that third and final stage. But I'm expecting we're going to see all of these 7 competitors finish around each other in those first 2 stages, which is going to make it crucial to finish the best you possibly can in that third and final stage. I mean, we talked about it before we even came on the air. Those 7 drivers, even though the points are this close, they've run around each other all season long. They could all be in must-win situations in order to make it into that Final Four.
No, you're absolutely right. As the starting grid rolls at the bottom of your screen, Jacob Grant got the pole by 1/1000th of a second over Justin Munsell, one of the playoff contenders. Grant, our winner back at Atlanta, his first win of the year there. It's going to be a war of attrition. Really quick, Seth, before we go to green keys to winning tonight.
Well, I think the first thing is you're going to try and figure out where you're better than your competition. Like I said, it's a multi-groove racetrack, so you're going to see some drivers comfortable down the bottom. Others are going to try and get out of that dirty air and move to the top. Second thing I think you definitely have to do is be careful on pit road. We mentioned it's 50 laps in these stages, but it's only 32 laps to 34 laps they can make it on a tank of fuel.
As the green flag is in the air, we're glad you're with us on the Flatout Racing Network. Jacob Grant and Justin Munsell get us underway. Pace car made that really odd left-hand turn into the pits, but regardless, the guys are ready to go for 180 laps of action. Like Seth said, 50 laps in this first stage. Fuel window and pits looking around the lap 30 mark, so a lot of things can happen in this first stage of 50 laps as these guys, you're going to see them use every inch of this racetrack as Jacob Grant trying to roll on the inside, 3 wide for the second spot behind them. Oh, as Kenny got loose, Robert Kenny into the wall as they come into the line. I don't rightfully know if he spun. He did. Caution is out. Mike Tellier, championship contender involved.
And Mike Tellier spun through the grass. I was watching his spin. He made some pretty significant contact with the right front and right rear of his machine. I believe it was down to that inside pit wall. I think they can get that repaired, but you're right. A championship competitor as early as lap 1. This is certainly something he did not need. He was 7th in the point standings coming into this one.
We're going to drop back and look and see what happened. You saw the 34, Robert Kenny out of Luminary Racing, already eliminated from the postseason back in the last round. You'll see this car absolutely just snap. I don't know if it was the dirty air. No, he just got loose.
Yeah. It was up there on the top side and what was almost a 3-wide situation. I think it was Tom Bourne had actually taken them 3 wide up ahead, and they were almost 3 wide for a second group. There were a couple of drivers that had some near moments coming off of that corner as well. Tyler Riggs nearly got out of shape on the inside line. I saw another driver, I think it was the 27 of Bobby Carroll. He nearly lost it. So there's something about the fresh tires on this racetrack that it must be really loose early on.
On board with the 3 of Mike Tellier as you see a car blink in front of them. You see the Kenny car up near the wall, and nothing really Tellier could have done to avoid it other than try to dive it to the left, but then you risk running into other competitors, so he did all he could there, and that is what has got us under our first caution of the evening, just barely completing a lap here at Chicagoland as it looked like just about everybody, save a couple drivers, decided to stay out. A few drivers coming in You see Shane Terrian out of Luminary, one of our playoff contenders. Philip Scott, another one as well. And then Nathan Hall and Matt Dyer, as Tellier and Kenny were already in due to the damage accrued in the pits. So, well, does that send a message to everyone, Seth, that maybe we need to relax a little bit?
Definitely. I mean, I was going to ask you when they were going there into turn 3 if this was the first lap of the race or the final lap of the race, because we had several different things take place there that I was not expecting, especially with this being an opportunity for drivers to punch their ticket in the final 4. Jacob Grant threw a huge block on Travis Daly going down the back straightaway, and then Tom Bourne forced the issue 3 wide in a battle for 3rd place. So it just seemed like these guys were turning up the aggressiveness a little too early for my liking, and I'm a little bit concerned here, Carlos, about that 3 of Mike Tellier, because I thought that maybe he slid through the grass and scrubbed off momentum and maybe hit the inside wall. That front-end damage was when he hit Robert Kenny, and it was significant. And this track is very, very aerodynamically dependent, especially on that long back straightaway. So I would be very concerned for him for the remainder of this race, because not only is he losing out on a lot of track position, it could possibly take him out of the running of getting stage points in stages 1 and 2.
He has left the pits officially and has returned to the racing surface. Robert Kenny remains in the pits. It wouldn't shock me if his day comes to an end. Just looking at the Tellier machine, he's got right rear damage on the cosmetic end of things. He got a lot, like you said, a lot of front end damage due to the hit from Kenny. And with such force, as well as Philip Scott has decided to take it down pit road a second time. Fuel only stops, however, for Shane Terrian and Nathan Hall. 4-tire stop, or excuse me, just an extended stay for Matt Dyer in the pits. Pace car lights are on, and it looks like Race Control has elected to go with a single file restart here. Pretty smart, if I would say so myself.
Especially what we just saw in lap 1, absolutely agree with you on that. I think that that is going to be better for all championship competitors overall. It also is going to make things interesting here, though, of who's going to be the one to jump up to that second groove, because with the single-file restarts, more than likely, everybody is going to migrate down to the bottom of the racetrack. So you're going to have to lay some rubber up there if you're going to avoid that loose sensation we saw Robert Kenny have off of turn 4.
The top 5 when we get back to green: Jacob Grant, the pole sitter; Justin Munsell, the outside pole sitter; Tom Bourne, he's over there in 3rd; Travis Daly 4th; and Jesse Powers is rolling off 5th. Single file restart. Pace car is in. We'll go back green. Lap 6 of 180. 175 to go. 45 to go here in the stages. You see the tire marks made by Mike Tellier there in the grass. Grant throwing the early blocks to try and scrub off the speed from the car behind him, and Munsell, as everyone spreads it out. Probably a good move that the double file restart did not happen on this restart as they head down the back straightaway.
Best battle right now is going to be for 3rd. And as soon as I say that, Justin Munsell got a nice toe down the back straightaway, and now he's knocking on the door maybe to take the race lead away from Jacob Grant. It looks like Travis Daly in that 15 machine was the driver decided to migrate up to the top side, see if there was anything there through 3 and 4.
Tom Bourne trying to get a good run on the front stretch, trying to go around the outside of his teammate in Justin Munsell. Hanging in there in 3rd, Travis Daly trying to pick a line up higher. Actually, I think he thought he had a run there down into the back straightaway. Meanwhile, they're 3 wide further back behind Gary Peck. For a moment, it was Alonso Chicano and Nick King and Justin Belmonte, 3 non-playoff contenders that were all up on each other there for a moment, but now they settle it back out single file. Meantime, Tom Bourne, he's moved his way up to 2nd because Munsell's starting to free fall as he's under fire from the 44 Powers.
And, that's something that we have to remember as well. There are 8 drivers in the field here today, well, 7 if you don't include the fact that Stipe's already locked in, that are trying to make their way into that final 4, but there's still another 19 drivers that are out there. They're still just trying to finish out the season with either another victory or their first trip to victory lane. You talked about Jacob Grant winning a couple of weeks ago at Atlanta. He'd love to be able to win his 2nd race in 3 starts. So, we saw Mike Tellier get involved in a wreck that involved a current non-playoff contender in Robert Kenny. That could be something these playoff drivers have to be aware of, that these non-playoff drivers, they're going to race them maybe a little bit more aggressively because they don't have anything to lose. There's no championship on the line for them.
Tom Bourne has taken the lead away from the 7 of Jacob Grant, gave him a kind of a block down the back straightaway, so that's going to allow Bourne to open up some room here. Look at some of these guys up here working their way through that we haven't seen have the speed, but they have it today. Jesse Powers going for 3rd, did not take the green flag at Daytona, so he is trying to work his way through. Another driver that's up here near the top 5, that's Gary Peck in the 22, in the unsponsored number 22. single car operation for him. Really good run for him so far as he's trying to run up here with the big boys.
You know, I see it happen so many times that drivers that usually will run mid-pack at the beginning of the season, they're out there, they learn from the front runners, and then next thing you know, near the end of the season, they've learned so much that they're able to, as you said, go up there and race with those top contenders. And so, no surprise to see the 44 and that 22 up here inside of the top 10 might be looking for their career bests on the season.
Travis Daly still trying to battle here with the 44 of Powers. Munsell looking on. Bourne and Grant, they're loving what they're seeing as that gives them a chance to focus on each other as Powers comes out of 4 looking to clear the 15, but that 15 not looking to go away. That outside on the front stretch has been really working. Also the same on the back stretch. And you know, folks, this back straightaway at Chicagoland, it's not your normal back straightaway. It's got curvature to it, so you can still carry a lot of speed through the back straightaway heading into 3 with the kind of curvature that back straightaway has.
Yeah, maybe one of the more unusual back straightaways for a mile and a half. If you look at other tracks like Kansas Speedway or Las Vegas, it's almost a practically straight straightaway, but you're right, there is a curvature there, so, and there is a little bit of banking back there as well, so it's almost very similar to the kind of front straightaway that we have here, not quite to the same degree. But I'm wondering about this 20 of Dylan Stipe, right now running in the 20th position, because he's already locked in based off of his win last week at Talladega, so he knows that. We're not really seeing him be overly aggressive right now. I'm almost wondering if he's just kind of waiting in the wings, possibly keeping his stuff all kept together 100% for that final stage, because he's not going to get any extra bonus points going into the season finale next week. It's going to be all tied up with the final 4, and whoever finishes the highest next week is going to be the champion. So I don't know, maybe we'll see him be a little bit more aggressive when we get to that final stage, but kind of surprised we don't see him trying to charge the front out of the gates here since he's already locked in.
Whoa, Nick King got the wall off at turn number 2, and he's down in the grass. He's trying to hang on to it. Looks like he will hang on okay. A car further up, I think it was Jesse Powers. He got out of shape as well, but a great save out of Nick King, but tough for him as he was running in 11th.
Tremendous save there for Nick King. I'm just going back quickly to see what might have possibly happened to him, and it's almost like he drove into the corner and it didn't stick. It just kept drifting up the track out of turn 2 and never turned back to the left. Amazing that he was able to save it there in the grass, as he was nearly spun around 2 or 3 times.
He's going to need a yellow to try and get back into the picture. He's having some internet issues, so I don't know if that may have a play in it as well. Lap 15 on the board, 16 now. Tom Bourne owning a half a second lead over the pole sitter Jacob Grant. We'll step away for 60 seconds. We'll be right back here on the Flatout Racing Network's production of the Clutch Drop Cup Series. Welcome back here to the Clutch Drop Cup Series, race number 19 of the season, playoff race number 4 from Chicagoland Speedway in gorgeous Joliet, Illinois. Carlos Zimmerman alongside of Seth Cole had a lot of action happening in the break. Shane Terrian nearly had an episode there with the 27 of Bob Carroll.
He definitely did, but I'll tell you what he's doing, though. Remember, he came down pit road under our only caution so far and took fuel only, has worked his way up now a total of, I believe, 11 positions since we went back green. And the thing that's interesting about that is he's running in the 13th position, is the driver that he came into this race tied with, Tom Bourne. They were tied for that 4th and final playoff position to advance into the finale next week. I mean, right now, Tom Bourne's leading this race, so the advantage is to the 54 currently.
Yeah, Tom hanging in there. You don't get points for leading laps, but you do get points for winning stages. As I'm watching here, Tom Bourne, he is starting to catch lap traffic, and we talked about it during the commercial break. Mike Tellier's in a really rough spot right now. So much damage on that machine right now, and it's not looking good for the 3.
No, it's not. I mean, right now, as we said during the commercial break, we were talking about his situation, and his lap times are anywhere from 2 to 3 seconds off of what your top 5 are running. So obviously that right front damage has affected his straightaway speed, and he's going to need a miracle to be able to advance into the Final Four. There's no doubt he's going to lose out on potential stage points here in the first stage and more than likely in the second stage. The only thing he can hope for right now is that he can manage to keep his car at least somewhat close to the lead laps. You see him going a lap down there and hope that other drivers around him run into some issues. And right now, he would basically have to hope that 4 playoff contenders were going to be finishing behind him, and that doesn't seem likely here today.
And even if they do finish behind them, you have to think if they ended up with stage points, it's not going to even matter if they finish behind them. Those stage points might be enough to buoy them, because at this point, Tellier has no shot right now with the condition his car is in to get into a stage point position, unless, we're down to 10 cars before the end of stage 2, which I don't see happening.
Yeah, in theory right now, Tom Bourne, Justin Munsell, and Bronson Stafford, they are the drivers right now that are still trying to make their way into the Final Four. They're in the top 10. Bourne the leader, Munsell in 3rd, and Bronson Stafford in 10th. If Shane Tyrion can get up there into the top 10, conclusion of this first stage, I think right there, having 4 drivers getting stage points in the first stage here, that would eliminate the 3 from advancing to the Final Four.
We'll keep an eye on it as Shane Tyrion all of a sudden is slow on the front stretch. I don't know what happened. I just saw him falling down my leaderboard. I don't know if he got the wall or if someone got into him. His car is still going, but now he has fallen all the way from 12th to 23rd.
Well, we were talking about the issue that Tyler Riggs had off of turn 4 when Robert Kenny was in trouble. Yeah, Shane Tyrion had the same thing happen. His left sides got down there on the paint line, that white line that got him wicked loose. He almost ended up having to come to pit road. His car was facing so far to the left, but he was able to get on the brakes, avoid the pit road commitment line. But to your point, they just dropped him all the way back now to last car on the lead lap in the 24th position.
And now he's in the pits is the 83 of Shane Tyrion. And he was already 14 seconds off the pace. So Tom Bourne is likely going to put him a lap down. Tellier might even pass him on the racetrack. So another playoff driver experiencing trouble as the 83 is in. And obviously not a scheduled stop, as there you go. The 3 passes him. He's out and away after 7.1 seconds. But now he's a lap down. We're halfway through this stage. Green flag pit stops are also right around the corner, as well as Tom Bourne all of a sudden has opened up a 2-second lead over the rest of the group.
He has indeed, and he's definitely laying down the best lap times on the track. The only other driver that's maybe close to matching his lap times is back in 4th place, Justin Belmonte, but Tom Bourne's going anywhere from 1 to 2 tenths faster than 2nd place Justin Munsell, so he's setting a blistering pace. And you talked about those green flag pit stops. Evan Coleman was on pit road the last lap. Jacob Grant, the pole sitter, and Dylan Stipe, our winner last week, they've hit pit road this time.
There they are. There's the 7. He'll pull into his stall, looking to get in there clean. That's the key today. Don't make mistakes in pit road. You don't want to make it at any track because it costs you precious seconds. And with how fast these laps tick away, I know we still got 153 to go now, but still, they tick away really quick. So you make a mistake on pit road and cost you 5 seconds, you might as well just kiss your race goodbye.
Mike Tellier coming down pit road here. I think this is a regularly scheduled stop for the 3. And going back to the 83 of Shane Tyrion, I think that this round of green flag pit stops is going to help him in one sense. The only problem is when these pit stops begins, here comes our race leader, Tom Bourne, to pit road. He was running last car on the lead lap before he came to pit lane. Plus, he was on the brakes and almost stopped out of turn 4 when he had that near spin. So he lost a ton of track position. I'm not necessarily certain that 83 is going to be on the lead lap when these cycle around.
It's going to be interesting to see if that's going to be the case, as Bourne is into the pits now. And in cleanly, he'll get all 4 tires or maybe not tires, actually. It looks like it's going to be fuel-only stop because, remember, these guys have only 4 sets overall, the 3 in the pits, and then the one that was on the car at the drop of the first green flag. As Bourne is out and away after a 7.9 second stop. We're just waiting on the top 17 to now come in. Justin Munsell, he is still leading. How about Gary Peck? Up into the second spot. Unusual spot we're used to seeing. Gary's had some trouble since coming on to the Clutch Drop Cup Series, but now he's in a really good spot now, up there in second, showing some really good speed around the top 10 of the guys on the racetrack running in second. Justin Belmonte, he's in there in third. Cam Caldwell there in fourth, teammate to Alonzo Chicano, who's right there in sixth, in the middle of a Jesse Powers sandwich. As then there's Tyler Riggs, Gerald Campbell, Tristan Maher, and Brandon King. That is your top 10 at the moment. Just waiting on this top group to come in. And that's when we'll be able to start seeing things cycle around. Once things cycle around, should hand the lead back to Tom Bourne.
Right now, Justin Munsell, when we talked about those 7 drivers that were trying to make their way into the Final Four, Munsell is second in the points. So for him staying out here, I like this strategy. I don't think he's necessarily going to cycle out as the race leader when everybody finally makes their green flag pit stop here, but staying out, getting the lap-led bonus point, I think is going to continue to ensure that he is going to join Dylan Stipe in the Final Four next week.
As only one taker that time by, it was the 12 of Justin Belmonte as the leader Munsell goes around his ailing teammate Robert Kenny, still fighting that car 14 laps down after the only caution we have had due to the wreck between him and Tellier. Tellier now 26th, 2 laps down after making another stop.
You know, it's kind of ironic here, too, because if you had asked me coming into this race of who maybe to watch, I probably would have picked that 3 of Mike Tellier, since the other 2 D-shaped mile-and-a-half tracks that we've come to, Kansas and Las Vegas, Tellier was the winner of both of those races. So, unfortunately, the mile-and-a-half program not going the way that he was hoping, as we're still waiting, it looks like, for 14 drivers to come to pit road here. They've been out there for 33 laps in their tires, and you mentioned about most drivers coming down and taking on fuel only. So this must be a very hard compound for these drivers, that they're not having to come down pit road, take on a fresh set of Goodyears after 30 some odd laps of running. So it makes it very interesting what they're going to do with those 4 sets when we get to that final 8-lap stint, if they can actually make it 50 laps on one set.
Watching the 15 now, Travis Daly, he's the only car that elected to come down this time by. Back-to-back stops for Belmonte and Daly, and they're the only 2 coming in. Daly had a good run so far. He was up in the top 5, started in the top 5. He actually came out 3rd on the starting grid. David Durand, another driver, he has now decided to come down pit lane as he's fighting some internet issues, but that 24 Liberty University Exalta Chevy is going to head into his stall, and he'll get service nice and clean in for the 24 of Durand. So really haven't seen any issues of these drivers coming into the pits. As I'm trying to watch here comes the 26 of Tyler Riggs, Seth.
So Tyler Riggs will be pinned from around the 5th position. Correction, 6th position is what he's giving up. Another driver coming down, it's going to be Deshaun Gorham in the 66 machine. A couple of drivers that actually did come down pit road under that only caution so far to top off the fuel tank that are still out there. Playoff contender Philip Scott right now in the 11th position, and Nathan Hall in the 28 right now in 12th. But neither one of these drivers can make it to the stage end, so I'm almost wondering how much time they're giving up with how long they're staying out here.
Just going to have to wait and see as, Seth, we got a plethora of drivers now in the pits. Munsell pitting out of the lead, Gary Peck out of second, Cam Caldwell, Alonzo Chicano, his teammate, as Philip Scott's going to fly up our grid here. That's going to leave us with 3 cars left on the racetrack that have not pitted. Gerald Campbell, who finished, I believe, 2nd last week at Talladega, correct me if I'm wrong, and then Derek Schilling, and then, of course, Philip Scott. As you mentioned, I'm looking at Munsell here. I think he had to drive through and he missed the stall.
Check it to see here about that 98 as you're correct. He actually finished 3rd to Gerald Campbell last week, and he's now down to the attention of his crew. Going to check about that 98 here of Justin Munsell. No, it looked like he did actually come down to pit road, took on fuel, so he is good to go. He did not come out ahead of Tom Bourne, however. It looks like right now projected he will come out in the 2nd position. Tom Bourne, right now, the leader of the drivers that have been to pit road so far.
I guess it's just my telemetry on my end went wrong. So Munsell did get service to his machine. Tom Bourne just ahead of him here. And it's looking like, barring a yellow, Tom Bourne is going to come away with a nice, decent lead, and it might be enough to carry him to a stage win. And he entered this race on the outside looking in, technically, tied with Terrian, as you mentioned. He was fifth on the playoff grid. This stage win is going to give him an extra 10 points. And with Terrian's going to come out, it doesn't even look like he's going to finish in the top 10 of the stage. So that's going to be a nice, cool 10 points for the 54. And it might jump him all the way up to the second spot because he was only behind Munsell by 3 points. So, well, actually, it may put him third. But regardless, this is going to benefit Tom Bourne.
And, there's obviously a long way still to go in this race. Nothing is set in stone yet. But as things stand right now, there's like 3 drivers up here that are playoff contenders that look like they're going to get some pretty good points. Tom Bourne in the lead, Justin Munsell in second, Bronson Stafford in third. And, these guys came in second, third, and fifth in the playoff standings. Barring them having a horrible stage 2, unless one of the other playoff contenders wins this race, they could be already making cases for themselves as early as stage 1 to be the other 3 competitors along with Dylan Stipe for that championship next week at Charlotte.
And, the goal, and those are all luminary drivers, mind you, Bourne, Munsell, Stafford, and then you can add in Terrian, the remaining playoff contender. And Terrian, he's had a couple wins this year. His first race in the series, he won it back at Dover on an emotional night for him due to personal issues. And then, Bourne, he's been good. He won back at Pocono. Munsell, he's always been competitive. Stafford as well. They all have wins. Every driver out of Luminary, save a couple part-timers, have won this year. Last week, that was their goal, to try and get all 4 of them, Bourne, Munsell, Stafford, and Terrian, to battle for the championship at Charlotte. But then an unfortunate incident in the middle portion of the race that involved just about all of them at Luminary, at Talladega. A big wreck took them all out of contention, and that is what put Dylan Stipe in the position he is in. His first win all year coming at the Superspeedway of Talladega at the hands of Luminary falling apart.
Well, right now it's looking like they're making a good case for themselves to at least have 75% of the Final 4 going into Charlotte. But, the only 2 drivers right now that have a shot of making it only 50%, Brandon King in the 89 and the 8 of Philip Scott. And I'm trying to figure out what the situation is with both of them, because Scott's running back in the 19th position, Brandon King back in 17th, and neither one of them qualified up inside of the top 10. I think it was 15th starting spot for King and 18th starting spot for Philip Scott. So I don't know if it's they just don't have the speed or if they're trying to be a little bit conservative, but I mean, in order for them to counter what Luminary is doing right now, they're going to have to get some stage points in the second stage.
And the way it's going right now, that's not even going to be the case, because the rest of the top 10 is filled in by non-playoff drivers outside of Bourne in first, Munsell second, and Stafford in fifth, because Cam Caldwell is third, our winner from Atlanta. Grant, he is fourth. Belmonte sixth. Tyler Riggs and Gerald Campbell, the 2 teammates, 7th and 8th. Dylan Stipe, who's already locked in, he's 9th. And then Matt Dyer, he's right there in 10th, likely to hang on to that spot. As Tom Bourne hits the line, that puts lap 45 on the board. 6 laps to go in the stage, but don't look now. The 98 has been closing ever so slightly.
And I want to give a call out there to Matt Dyer in that 10th position, because he was actually the first car put 1 lap down under green flag conditions, even sooner than Mike Tellier was. He made the decision to come to pit road way earlier than everybody else, right when the window opened, to be able to make it the rest of the way in this stage. And it's looking like he's going to snag possibly that final stage point in that 10th position. So tremendous strategy there. And I gotta wonder if any of these drivers that may consider themselves must-win drivers for the playoff contenders will take notice of that strategy and maybe try something similar either in stage 2 or maybe something like that in stage 3 to try and win this race.
One driver that has kind of disappeared and that was in the top 10 before green flag pit stops, that was the 95 of Alonso Chicano. He's now 1 lap down. The third car 1 lap down, had an extended stay in the pits. Don't know if he was caught speeding or anything, and that's why he had a long stay in pit road. That's why you see him back in 25th. Looking ahead, Derek Schilling, he's the next car to be caught by Tom Bourne, and it's looking like he's going to catch him. So more than likely, Derek Schilling, he'll be the lucky dog under this stage break caution. And that's not going to help the guys like Deshaun Gorham, Nathan Hall, Chicano, Mike Tellier, because they're all off the lead lap and behind the lucky dog spot. So it's not looking good for them as Bourne continues to log laps. I said Munsell was closing, but it looks like he's backed off a little bit as the 54 passes the 69 Schilling machine.
Yeah, Munsell is running a little bit faster than Tom Bourne, but he just does not have the speed to be able to close up enough of the gap to be on his back bumper when they get to the final lap of this first stage. Right now, maintaining about 0.9 of a second between the 54 and the 98. And I mentioned pre-race about having to execute on pit road. We were seeing the 22 of Gary Peck and the 44 of Jesse Powers running so well inside of the top 5. Well, pit road execution just was not there for either of them. Jesse now finds himself in 13th and Gary Peck back in 16th. They're both still running well and on the lead lap, but obviously they lost some spots with their pit road strategy.
They're going to need a good second stage to get back into the picture, and with how everything is shaping out, barring any just changes inside the top 10 as they run right now will be your stage. Bourne leader, Munsell second, Caldwell third, Grant fourth, Stafford fifth, Belmonte sixth, Tyler Riggs seventh, Campbell 8th, Dylan Stipe 9th, and Matt Dyer in 10th as the white flag in the stage is out. 1 lap to go here for Tom Bourne, who owns a nice, cool 1 second lead over his teammate Munsell, as Bourne is trying to make the case early for a playoff spot.
No caution, Carlos, but we did have an incident the last lap off of turn 2. Deshaun Gorham got up into the wall, darted down into the infield grass, actually hopped up over one of the infield roads there and scraped the inside wall. No caution came out as he was able to keep it straight, but we almost did have a caution end this stage before we even got to the end of the stage.
Well, the stage is over as Tom Bourne wins stage number 1. 10 playoff points going his direction. Justin Munsell, he gets 9. Caldwell 8th. Grant 7th. Stafford 6th. And you get the rest as 6th through 10th will get 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 all the way down. What a drive out of the 54 of Tom Bourne. Played the pit strategy right and had just enough of a gap over his teammate to cruise to a stage 1 win.
Yeah, definitely important there for Tom Bourne, Justin Munsell, and Bronson Stafford, because this, they're hoping, is going to set the rest of the race in terms of how well they're going to do. We could very well already have established who our Final Four are going to be, but I'm looking still at some guys that could get up here and win this race and kind of muddy the waters. That 83 of Shane Tyrion is still there. Philip Scott could still pull off some strategy, as well as Brandon King. So it's one of those races you can't say that it's over until we get to that final lap.
As Tom Bourne, he's going to be looking to get into the pits here. And, well, one thing that we've noticed is let's not talk to them while they're trying to come into the pits because they're distracted if we talk to them while they're coming down. So we'll wait when he comes out of his pit, and we'll talk to the Tom Bourne, our stage 1 winner. Just to recap the race real quick, if you're just joining us, we've had 2 cautions. This is our second, this one for a stage break. First one was due to an incident between Robert Kenny and Mike Tellier as the leaders will come in. Tellier experiencing a lot of damage. He's got a really ill-handling race car right now, back in 26th, off the lead lap, likely out of the picture for a Final Four spot, but you never know. Stranger things can happen, so we won't write him off until it's absolutely positive that he won't be in. But that is the only caution that we have had since the drop of the green flag, at least in terms for a wreck, as Tom Bourne is into his stall, looking to get all 4 tires. The first set onto that machine as trouble for Powers. He had overslid his stall as Bourne Caldwell is going to come out, and I think Tom just beat Munsell out of the pits.
That was close, no doubt about it. Tom Bourne did not have as good a qualifying effort as Munsell did. Munsell started on the outside of the front row and nearly had that number 2 pit stall give him the advantage there.
If not for Jacob Grant, he would have had that number 1 stall. Again, he only missed by 1/1000th of a second to get that pole spot. But that's unfortunate for him. But he's going to restart second. But who's restarting first? It's our stage 1 winner, Tom Bourne. We'll talk to him now. Hey, Tom. This is Carlos and Seth in the FRN booth. You got us?
Yeah, I got you guys.
What a drive for you in that first stage. An incredible run for you. Had the pit strategy play out perfectly. You held off Munsell at the end of this first stage, and now you get a cool 10 points to add to your cushion to try and get into that Final Four spot. Are you feeling good at this point of the race, but do you think you need a second stage win to solidify yourself into the Final Four?
You know what? This first stage went absolutely perfectly. Those 10 bonus points are really going to help me to try and get in that Final Four. I just need to get stage points in the second stage. I know Shane didn't get any this stage right now, so that's going to help me even more. But I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. Car feels great, and hopefully we can get another win in this stage.
Yeah, Tom, I mean, we saw a lot of drivers have some trouble there in that first stage, drivers getting out of shape on those fresher tires. It looked like your car stuck pretty well there through 3 and 4. So is the goal here to just maintain what you've got, or are you going to try and be aggressive and try and win this race to carry that momentum if you make it into the Final Four into championship weekend next week at Charlotte?
Well, I think everybody wants to win this race if they're doing, well. But I'm going to keep what I got right now, try and be consistent. Like I said, points matter and so much right now. And but if the opportunity presents itself, I'm going to try and go out there and win this race because then I don't have to worry about points.
Well, Tom, one more question before we let you go, as we're going to get the 1 to green this time. You know, you got some friends around you. Munsel's going to restart second here. Stafford's going to restart fourth, but you got some other non-playoff contenders laying in the weeds. Cam Caldwell, he's got a quick car there in third. Jacob Grant, the pole sitter. Belmonte and Maher, they have speed as well. And I know Dylan Stipe won at Dega last weekend, but he wouldn't mind going for a second win. You're going to be worried about them, or do you think you're just going to run your race and it'll be enough?
I'm basically going to run my race, and if they get to me, then I'll deal with it then. But you know what? I'm going to run my race. Hopefully Justin and Bronson can, run up there with me and everything, and we'll see. Hopefully, Luminary stays 3 out of the 4 cars going in the Final Four.
Alrighty, Tom. Best of luck to you in this second stage. If you win it, we'll talk to you then. Good luck.
All right, thanks, guys.
Alrighty, they're going to double up here on this restart here, Seth. A little nerve-wracking given the past double foul restart that gave us a caution on lap 2, but we'll have to wait and see what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one thing that I remember back from the initial start of this race when Jacob Grant was the race leader and Munsell lined up to his outside was, Munsell pulled off what you have to do at these 1.5 mile tracks on that outside line, pulled out right down to his passenger side door and tried to get the side draft going into turn 1. Now, I know it's a teammate down there to driver's left, but Tom Bourne just won a stage. Munsell wants to win a stage here as well and secure himself a spot in the Final Four. So we'll see how these guys race each other on the beginning of the second stage.
As the green flag back in the air, good restart for Bourne, but an also good restart for Justin Munsell here on this double foul restart. But don't look now, Cam Caldwell on the preferred line on the inside, but he is in a luminary storm right now as they're all around him, in front of him, to the right of him, behind him, as they're going to roll through here. Bourne slams the door on the number 10 of Caldwell, who had a really good run here. Watch Munsell get a good run here into 3 as the middle groove has seemed to have some speed around this racetrack.
Yeah, that was a huge block that Tom Bourne threw on Caldwell right there. 3 wide further behind them, though. I believe that's Tristan Mayer stuck in the middle in the 17. Grant on the top side. Campbell, wow, he nearly pushed up into the 17 car as that was tight into turn 1.
That was so close. Watching Campbell over the years, he's not willing to back down, and he didn't back down right there as Grant trying to hang on there on the outside, trying to use that outside line to his work. Meantime, Munsell took the second spot away from Cam Caldwell. They're going to go 3 wide, though, as Stafford, Grant, and Caldwell in the middle with Campbell trying to find a line to go with. They're still going to be 3 wide here through the corner. That's going to be really tight with the 7 and the 10. They still keeping it 3 wide.
It's incredible that the car in the middle and outside lineup, that three-wide situation, looked the most steady. Bronson Stafford was the one that looked a little squirrely on the bottom of the racetrack. He will clear for that position, though, moving to third. Grant with a big run there out of 4, though.
Look who's coming into the picture, the 83 of Shane Terrian, out of nowhere now moving into the picture. Gary Peck, he's around this group as well, but now he's going to get loose, nearly came up into the 83.
Shane Terrian came into this race 4th in the playoff standings. Right now, he is currently on the outside looking in terms of who our Final Four would be, so I'm not necessarily certain he has to win this stage, but he has to absolutely finish up inside of the top 5 to counter runs that Justin Munsell and Bronson Stafford had back in stage 1.
So you're watching the Grant machine. Out of all that, he is cleared into third. Gerald Campbell, he made that hard work pay off. He's up into fourth. Bronson Stafford fifth. The big loser out of all that was Cam Caldwell. He's still under fire from playoff driver Shane Terry, and they're likely going to lose that spot too because that outside line has a really good speed as the battle's going to happen for fourth again. Stafford looking to make the pass, and he will on that number 31 Patriotic schemed of Gerald Campbell, move him to the fourth spot. So Luminary running 1, 2, 4, and it's been 6th or 7th back and forth with that 83 of Terry, and maybe trying to pinch the 10 down into 2.
Yeah, 6th or 7th about 2 or 3 times there through 1 and 2 as Caldwell and Tyrion remain side by side for that 6th position. Behind them, Justin Belmonte, Tyler Riggs, they're running in 8th and 9th with Gary Peck in 10th. Things were really wadded up there on that restart from about 3rd position on back. Things have finally settled out. But the one thing I'm noticing here, Tom Bourne is not pulling away from Justin Munsell like he did back on that first stage. The 98 has been able to keep it with less than 3/10 between himself and the 54. So I don't know if maybe he found something back in the final half of that first stage that he's using now, but he looks a lot quicker, and he's caught the wake of the 54 machine, get some nice runs down the straightaway.
We'll get to them in a minute as the second pack back here, Brandon King, another playoff contender, just on the outside of the top 10 right now, needing some stage points to just stay relevant in this picture. He didn't get any stage points, so he's already behind the 8 ball. He's in 11th with Gary Peck and others. They're battling ahead of him, so before long, that second group of King, Maher, Stipe, Bob Carroll, and Jesse Powers will catch eventually. As you're looking here at the race leader, Tom Bourne with Munsell in the same picture, and Grant was starting to catch, but all of a sudden, it's a Luminary 1, 2, 3 as Stafford has gotten around the 7.
Bronson Stafford in that 3rd position is not good news for the 83 of Shane Tyrion. We know that at least one of the 4 Luminary cars are not going to make the Final 4, and right now, it very well looks like it could end up being the number 83 Toyota as things currently stand, but he's got a good race car still, and let's remember, if Shane Tyrion were to win this race, then that would knock either Bourne, Munsell, or Stafford out of the Final 4. So, depending on what happens here in the second stage, Shane Tyrion could be in a must-win situation, especially if his teammates continue to run 1, 2, and 3 here when we get to the end of the second stage.
Move Shane Tyrion to the 5th position now. He has passed Gerald Campbell for that 5th position, so only Jacob Grant separates him from his teammates up there at the front. He's about 7/10 right now behind that number 7 of Jacob Grant. Things have settled out, so we'll step aside for another break. We'll be back in 60 seconds here on the Flatout Racing Network.
I promise to follow through.
I promise to repair or replace your product.
I promise to get your optics back to you as soon as possible.
A promise is the foundation of our business. We call it the VIP warranty, the very important promise. It's unlimited, unconditional, and lifetime. No matter what the problem is, no matter how the problem occurred, no matter how old the product is, if it says Vortex Optics on it, we will repair or replace your product at no cost to you. Maybe it was an accident, maybe it was your fault, or even your dog's. No matter what happens, we've got you covered.
It's simple. There's no product registration, no receipts to hang on to. Just grab a box, fill out a form, ship us your product. No hassle, no questions asked.
We stand behind the quality and performance of our products, and our commitment to you extends far beyond the initial purchase. I promise.
back here on the Flatout Racing Network's coverage of the Clutch Drop Cup Series. Seth, couple cars pitting out of the top 5. The 7, the pole sitter, Jacob Grant, and playoff contender Shane Terrian.
You know, I actually like this strategy because if you remember, Sam Dyer was one of the earlier ones to pit road in the first stage, and he was able to hold off most of the drivers behind him that had pitted later to get that 10th finishing position. So for Shane Terrian, Jacob Grant coming down now, they're going to be coming down a less congested pit road. The only issue now, though, they have to hope this thing continues to go green when we get to the conclusion of lap 100, because if the caution comes out, they've both currently been trapped a lap down.
Yeah, they're back onto the racetrack. I was worried when Terrian came back up. He was right into a hornet's nest of drivers. And with them pitting out, that moves this picture of as Gerald Campbell ducks into the pits as well, seeing that strategy alongside Bronson Stafford. He's pitting as well, so got to watch these things happening, as now the new third place car is the 12 of Justin Belmonte, and he's dealing with a lot of drivers. He's got Gary Peck, Cam Caldwell, and Tyler Riggs all on his deck lid right now.
This was a battle for 7th place about 3 laps ago, and this has been the fun pack to watch with Belmonte, Gary Peck, Tyler Riggs, and Cam Caldwell, because they have been up each other's bumpers lap after lap. As a matter of fact, when Gerald Campbell came to pit road, he got taken 3 wide because Belmonte had to shoot the middle with Gary Peck to his outside. So these guys have been racing tooth and nail here, now currently for that 3rd position.
Oh boy, I thought Peck was going to get into the left rear quarter panel of the 10 of Caldwell, as they got to watch the 61 returning to the racetrack here. They're going to be 3 wide here for a brief moment as Caldwell, Stafford got up into the 22 of Peck, near trouble, but they all save it.
Tyler Riggs taking evasive action. He goes down to the apron there in case they had wrecked on the front straightaway. But yeah, we're seeing drivers, Bronson Stafford, Shane Terrian a couple of laps ago, that come off of pit road. They're having to merge into some pretty hectic traffic here, which is currently from 3rd back to around the 6th position. And having to merge with this group is putting them in some rather perilous situations.
The 83 going to try and clear the 10 of Caldwell here. The 61 trying to clear the Peck machine, as none of these guys making a move toward the pits. And this is all happening 5 seconds, or almost 6 seconds behind the race leader, Tom Bourne, and Justin Munsell, who, mind you, Seth, Munsell hasn't really lost sight of the 54 of Bourne.
No, he's still right there. Their lap times have been absolutely identical since we went back green. And also, just for people watching, you know, the 61, the 83 are here in this group of cars, 3rd, 4th, 5th position, where those lead lap cars are running. Stafford and Terrian a lap down. People probably wondering, well, why aren't they blowing by them? They were just on pit road. Remember, it was a fuel-only strategy. So the tires are equal right now between these lap machines and these lead lap cars.
If anything, the tires on the drivers that were exiting pits, they were just a little bit cooler, given that they're coming from such a low speed. But now they're all back even with where everything's running right now. Do want to report that the 34 of Robert Kenny, he has put the car behind the wall, and he has called it a night after his lap 1 incident with Mike Tellier. A tough break for Robert Kenny. One-time winner earlier this year. Another thing that has gone wrong is the 51 of Evan Coleman has disappeared. It looks like internet issues for the 51, and that's likely going to spell the end of his night.
I can tell you what happened with the 51. I actually saw it happen off of turn 4. I think he was trying to come to pit road, got on the brakes too late, missed the commitment line, and since he wasn't able to make a pit stop there, he decided to call it a night. So tough break there for the driver of the Skittles Toyota.
So he'll likely finish out of the race in the 26th position. That's going to put Mike Tellier up another spot. But the thing for Mike is he's 2 laps down, one of 2 cars 2 laps down. Might be able to get it back, as he will get up to 24th now with the 66 of Deshaun Gorham. He's in the pits now. It's just looking more and more bleak as the laps tick by. I know we're not halfway yet in this thing, but it's not looking good for the 3.
The problem for him right now, Tom Bourne, Justin Munsell, Bronson Stafford, all got points in the first stage. Things are looking like it maybe they'll get points here in the second stage as well. Shane Terrian looks like he may be en route to getting some points here as well. Unless those drivers suffer a DNF here in the final stage of this race, Mike Tellier trapped 2 laps down. He's just out there logging laps right now, realizing that his championship hopes, they are dwindling lap by lap.
And this is such a tough break for him. He's a 3-time winner this year. Now, granted, he has not won with a Luminary driver on the racetrack. All 3 of those wins coming back before Luminary joined on at the Dover race. So when you look back at it, I'm going to pull up my schedule here. When you look back at it, he got those wins early on, and then even mixed in with the Luminary guys, actually, my mistake. So he did get a couple wins with Luminary drivers on the track, but the point still stands. It's been a struggle for him to get back to victory lane.
Definitely has, as Tom Bourne going to give up the race lead to come to pit road. An update on another of our playoff contenders that was on pit road about 2 laps ago, Brandon King. Well, we talked about the execution on pit road. He slid through his pit stall, had to back it up, so that's going to lose him some valuable track position.
Watching the 54 get into his stall here. Oh, excuse me, as we are at the 100 laps to go mark in this race. We have 20 laps to go in this, or excuse me, actually, I think I might be looking at that wrong. No, I'm correct. 20 laps to go in this stage before we get to the end of stage 2, which will come at lap 100 with Bourne pitting. I'm going to be watching here for the Bronson Stafford machine. Here he comes around the corner in 2, and he's going to pass his teammate in the 54 of Bourne here. Belmonte and others, they haven't pitted yet, so don't have to worry about that. But if things cycle out the way they do, Bronson Stafford might be in a good spot to try and get a stage win.
And I think that the speeds between Tom Bourne and Bronson Stafford were somewhat close back in stage 1, so they're kind of on equal footing. And what is now a second and a half between the 61 and the 54, I think can be maintained in what's going to be these final 16, 17 laps of this second stage. So I think this was a great call by Bronson Stafford, and I go back again to when we saw Matt Dyer come down pit road early in the first stage. It worked out to his benefit, and I think Bronson Stafford did the exact same type of strategy coming down earlier than the rest of his competition. I think it could pay dividends. We'll see if he can hold off Tom Bourne here as they come closer to the end of this stage, but I'm worried right now about some of these other drivers that decide to stay out, that are down near that end of the top 10. I don't necessarily think that Jesse Powers, Tyler Riggs, Cam Caldwell, Tristan Mayer, that they're going to be able to maintain a spot inside of the top 10 in this second stage and get those stage points.
Another playoff driver who's running in the top 10 right now but hasn't pit, that's the 8 of Philip Scott, one of the dark horses. He's been so close on many different occasions. As the 12 of Belmonte, he has come into the pits now. But for Scott, he's been close to wins on many occasions. Saw him really show flashes of greatness at the road courses this year. Road America, he ran really well. The Roval, he ran really, really well. Watkins Glen wasn't there for that race, but, I'm sure he had really good experiences there as well. So these oval tracks have not been kind to the 8 as he nearly gets the wall off of turn number 2. That's going to cost him more time as he's going to get passed here by the lap machine of Alonso Chicano. And he's hanging on to the 8 spot right now in that number 8. Back to the front, the Tahoe number 98 Toyota at Illuminary. Munsell, he nearly got the wall in the back straightaway, and it wouldn't surprise me if he did swipe it a little bit. I think the tires might be starting to come away from that number 98.
And I think we're going to see him on pit road this time, possibly because of that moment he had out of turn 1. No, he stays out. He also went up and brushed the wall a little bit going into turn 3, trying to get as close as he could for the best arc to drive it deep into the third corner. Saw some sparks coming off of that right rear fender. So playing a little bit dangerously with that outside wall is the driver, the number 98, but so far been able to keep the fenders on it, continues to show the way. And I want to go back there to what you were talking about with Philip Scott. Yeah, it's been a very consistent year for him, despite his lack of trips to victory lane. The thing I'm going to be watching for him here is going to be that third and final stage, because he just has not seemed to have the pace to get up there, be inside of the top 10, and get those stage points. So something says to me he came into Chicagoland tonight in a must-win mentality to be one of those Final Four competitors next week at Charlotte.
8.9 second stop for Philip Scott. A little bit slower than our leaders of Stafford, Bourne, Jacob Grant, and Terrian. And then that also can be due to the fact that they may not have packed it awfully full of fuel, as here comes the 98 of Munsell into the pits.
It's like everybody, for the most part, has done a great job of being able to get onto pit road, get it down to pit road speed. the execution errors for most drivers has been when they get to their pit stalls. And a big reason for that is because you've got the asphalt on the access road coming down pit lane, but once you get into your pit stall, you've got concrete, and it's a lot slicker of a surface, especially when you've got rubber that's been laid down there from previous pit stops.
As Munsell is into his stall clean, watching the Caldwell machine behind him. Looks like he's into his stall clean. Munsell will peel out behind the pace car, and he is out and away after 9.4. So that tells me he packed it full of fuel coming in here. I'm watching. There's the Stafford machine. That's the pass for the lead right there. Bronson Stafford, using the Matt Dyer mentality, has put himself in a spot to try and win stage 2.
That gap has not closed up nor grown between himself and Tom Bourne. It remains a second and a half as Gary Peck, Jesse Powers, Tristan Mayer, and Tyler Riggs, they've all come down pit road. That turns the race lead over now to the 2 of Matt Dyer. So kind of a flip the coin strategy here for Matt Dyer. He was one of the first on pit road during the first stage. He's going to be one of the last drivers to pit road here during the second stage.
It's not one of the last. He's going to be the last coming into the pit series, and it looks like he's going to come this time by. There he is. He's ducking off the racing surface. I think he got the stage point that he wanted, just trying to run a race out there, just enjoy himself out there in that number 2 machine out of CEM Motorsports. His teammate, Jacob Grant, he's had a great day. He won the pole. He's going to be up here in third, going to be getting some nice stage points here, breaking up a little bit of a party between the luminary guys as Dyer is out and away after 5.6 seconds, got the car topped off, and he is ready to get out and going. So that has cycled the lead officially to Bronson Stafford, and you mentioned that gap didn't close a lot. Well, it's closed a bit now. It's inside a second as Bourne is trying to catch him.
And I understand that Tom Bourne, we talked to him during that first stage win, that he wanted to be able to win this second stage as well. But if I'm not 54, I'm not going to force the issue too much because you got 10 points back in the first stage. You're in line to get 9 points here in the second stage. As things stand right now, himself and Bronson Stafford look like they could be 2 of the competitors moving into the Final Four next week. The guy that would be on the hot seat, I think, would be Justin Munsell right now in the 4th position. The reason that I say that is because even though he's going to get some pretty good stage points in both the first and second stage, Shane Tyrion, it looks like, may not get any stage points as he's currently mired back in 12th. He's going to be in a must-win situation here in this final stage, and if he wins, it could very well be that 98 that he eliminates.
It very well could be, because looking at all the other playoff contenders, Brandon King, 17th, Philip Scott, 19th, they are just not in any place right now to be in contention for a spot. They're in must-win spots too, and you know, King, he won back at Auto Club. It's a little bit of a speedway-esque track, so not like Chicagoland by any stretch. Philip Scott, he's been more, like I mentioned, of a road course ringer, so it's going to be tough for them to get into the picture as Nathan Hall, right and by the leaders, is off the racing surface, but looks like he's got it back straight.
Great save there by the 28 machine, as now Justin Munsell going to go around him. This is just inside of the top 5 that the 28 has had his issue, and I'm not certain what exactly is going on here, Carlos, but something is amiss on that 83 machine. I'm not sure that they got that thing packed full enough of fuel, and he might be trying to save to make it to the end of this stage because he dropped from 12th now all the way back to 15th. As a matter of fact, the 22 of Gary Peck is back down pit road, and I think maybe he might be having a fuel issue.
He had a 5.5 second stop, and guys like Munsell and Campbell, they had 9-second stops. So, and they were all fuel-only stops. So that tells me that Campbell and Munsell and those guys, they spent more time packing the car full of fuel. Terrian, out of everybody on the green flag laps, had the slowest or the fastest stop, and usually that means a good thing. Not in this case. With 4 or 5 laps to go in this stage, he's in save mode right now, and it's got him in the 14th spot, and he is 8 seconds off of that 10th spot held right now by Alonso Chicano. So this isn't going to be good for Terry, and like you said, Seth, must win now for the 83.
And no doubt about it, and going back to your point about that 5.5 seconds, he spent that nearly 5-second amount of time on pit road as almost one of the first drivers to come down pit lane. So if he was short on fuel there, taking on that little bit of fuel certainly didn't help his efforts, and I'm trying to figure out what's going on with the 22 machine. He did come down pit road. Oh, I think he came in too hot. Yeah, he got busted with a speeding penalty, did Gary Peck. He's now back on the track, but now 2 laps down. Very costly mistake for him.
It's a tough break. He had a really, really fast car, something we haven't been accustomed to seeing here this season in the races he's run. He's had his struggles this year, but, you know, it's not insurmountable. He's 2 laps down with Nathan Hall. He's going to need to take a couple wave arounds to get back into the picture, maybe a lucky dog as well, to try and get back in the picture. Watching Bronson Stafford here. When he hits the line, there'll be 2 laps to go. He's about to catch Matt Dyer here and put him a lap down, as there's now 2 laps to go, as Dyer running there in the 19th spot. Bob Carroll just ahead of them. Giving a call to Bob Carroll as well. He's had a lot of races this year where he's found himself out of trouble as Dyer got the wall off of turn number 3. 2, excuse me.
Right in front of the leader, too. Fortunately, did not spin, was able to get down to the inside, and Bronson Stafford able to get around him as he's about to come around and get the proverbial white flag, if you will, here for the completion of the second stage.
White flag in the air for the 61 of Stafford, looking to put Bob Carroll a lap down, and that would put Carroll in the lucky dog spot. As he is driving around Bronson Stafford, Carroll a little bit up the racetrack there, way up the racetrack there, as he's off the racing surface. He'll get back straight, though, however, as that's going to put Matt Dyer in the lucky dog spot now, but it's all about the 61 of Bronson Stafford. With this stage win, it might be enough to punch his ticket to Charlotte with the stage win, as Stafford hits the line and takes stage 2, and the caution will fly for the stage break. Big win for Stafford.
So far, the Luminary boys have swept the stages. Now the question is, can they complete the sweep with the race win? And as things stand right now, Carlos, it's looking like Stafford, Bourne, and Munsell are making clear cases for themselves to join Stipe in the Final Four, but we still are going to have 80 laps to go here at Chicagoland. We've only worked 1 caution for a crash. That was all the way back in the first 3 laps of this race. The other 2 cautions have been stage cautions. We now know that the aggressiveness is going to ramp up even more now, and we could end up seeing more of our playoff contenders have issues in the final stages of this race.
Our playoff contenders, they finished that stage first for Stafford, second for Bourne, Munsell 4th. The next one up would be Stipe 9th, but he's already locked in to the championship race at Charlotte. And then you go down to Brandon King, ended up 15th. Philip Scott 16th. Terrian, I think, ended up finishing behind them.
He did.
So, wow. So Terrian's going to be 7th on the playoff grid because Tellier was the only playoff driver that finished behind him because he's 3 laps down in 24th. So, wow. Something we're not used to seeing out of that number 83 of Shane Terrian, as the leaders will come down, led by Bronson Stafford. Got to be careful getting to the stall, getting to these stalls and getting onto pit lane. I know we prided a lot of these guys of getting in cleanly, but we saw with the 22 of Gary Peck, he slid through Stafford. Oh, I thought he slid too far, but I think he got in there just enough. Right behind that commitment line. That's enough for him to be able to get service on that machine. That was close.
Definitely was. I was with you. I thought that he had actually overshot his pit box as well, but barely was able to keep it in the boundaries of his stall. As looks like
he's not going to come out the leader here.
He's not. Looks like it's going to be the 17 of Tristan Mayer that comes out as the race leader, and the reason for that looked like a fuel-only stop for the 17 machine. So
gutsy.
Yeah, I'm a little confused about this strategy because, okay, you're able to hold them off maybe on 20-lap old tires, okay, but he's going to have to hold them off on 50-lap old tires. I'm going to check back and just make sure he didn't maybe go with a 2-tire stop, but it certainly looked like fuel-only for that Roush Ford Mustang, and yeah, fuel-only for him. I'm not certain about this strategy.
I don't know. It's like I said, it's a gutsy call to make that in this point of the race. Of course, you're trying to get track position, but unless a caution comes out in the first 10 laps of this green flag run, which, you know, if we go double file, that definitely is in the cards for a caution to come out. But if it doesn't come out, it's going to cost the 17 dearly if he's not able to do it. Dylan Stipe pitting out of the 5th spot. He came out of the pits 5th, but he's going to come back down and get more service, so that'll move everybody up one spot. So coming out of the pits, our playoff grid, Stafford out second, Bourne fourth, Munsell fifth. And you got to go way down to Brandon King 13th, Philip Scott 15th, and then Shane Terrian 18th, dead last on the lead lap.
We got another driver that has taken it back behind the wall. Derek Schilling in the 69 machine. He got trapped a lap down into that last green flag run, and looks like he will more than likely finish in the 24th position. Not sure if the 66 of Deshaun Gorham, who've been sitting on pit road for nearly the last 30 laps, if he'll be able to get back out there and pick up that spot or not. Here's the scenario now, Carlos. We know Stipe's already locked in. For Bronson Stafford, Justin Munsell, and Tom Bourne, it's maintain what you've got, because right now you're in those final three positions. The rest of the drivers, Shane Terrian, Philip Scott, Mike Tellier, and Brandon King, I think they're in must-win situations.
Absolutely, and before we forget, before we get back to green, let's talk to our Stage 2 winner, Bronson Stafford. Hey, Bronson, this is Carlos and Seth in the FRN booth. Real quick here, you got us?
Yeah, I got you.
Big second stage win for you. Might get you in a spot right now to win the, to maybe win the race, but also get into the playoffs with that Stage 2 win. Real quick here, as we got the one to go, you're going to restart second here. It's going to be a little interesting here with that 17 going fuel only.
Yeah, we're going to pretty much swallow the 17 alive here. So it's just kind of avoid his wheel spin and hope he doesn't get wheel spin. But yeah, really good run so far. You know, first started 24th, got 5th in the first stage, won the second stage. I think right now we're looking, Justin, myself, and Tom, we're looking in for the final four. Shane's in a must-win at this point with no stage points. He's pretty much lost 20 points to all of us. So it's going to be a comeback fight for Shane, but I mean, he's done it before, so I'm not too worried.
Real quick here, Bronson, you guys had 50 laps to strategize there with these first two stages. Add another 30 laps onto this one. So you got a strategy for this, or you're going to kind of wait and play it by ear?
Run it hard, run it till it's empty, and put tires on and go to the end. Hopefully no yellows.
Alrighty, Bronson, getting ready for the restart here. Best of luck to you.
Hey, thanks, guys.
As we're ready to go back to green flag racing, the moving pick, if you will, Tristan Maher is going to lead them to the green here. He's got to be careful. Gets a little bump from the 7 of Grant. Green flag back in the air. Stafford, he'll get out and away in second. That little bump by Grant kind of cost him battling there with second as there one car way down on the apron. That was Alonso Chicano, but everyone gets into the corner cleanly. Battle is on for 5th. They're 3 wide further back. Maher leading into the backstretch.
Nearly had one of our playoff contenders get involved in it. And oh, we're 4 wide back there. Something happened around mid-pack. I think that was around Chicano again. Brandon King nearly took him to the apron 4 wide. Things
watch this.
As King pushes up into the 95 machine. They're still keeping it straight down the front stretch.
A couple teammates right up there, Caldwell and Chicano around the playoff driver of King. Bob Carroll way off the racetrack once again. Got to be careful bringing it up back onto the racetrack, but ran into nobody. Trouble for the 27, who was already a lap down, but it looks like he is off and safe. The battling continues as Maher is going to start cascading through the field, battling further up. Munsell dealing with the 7 of Jacob Grant.
And they're making some contact further back there. Cam Caldwell, Brandon King, Alonso Colano. Oh my goodness, we were 3 wide on the apron. They didn't even use the racetrack up above the white line there in the mid-pack area.
Everyone trying to find every inch of this racetrack. Look who's coming to the picture here. David Duran. Haven't seen him in the top 10 all day. He's trying to work his way through. Travis Daly. Haven't seen him since the early portion of the race. He's trying to work his way through. As the lap machine of, the slow machine of Maher is going to get split 3 wide here by a couple teammates in the 10 and the 95. This is going to be hairy through the front stretch, but they are keeping it there. King almost all the way down in the grass on the front stretch.
I think his left side Goodyears did clip the infield grass as he was trying to get a run there to be to the inside of the 17, who's now going to get split 3 wide. King on the bottom, Durand up top side. He got the wall to the 24, nearly came back down into traffic.
Terrian was in that picture as well. Look at Terrian trying to work his way through. Maher nearly took the nose off of him, and then Daly ran right into the back of the 17. Couple cars trying to smoking back there. I think that's due to connection issues, but they keep it going. There's still 3 wide here between 2 playoff contenders in King and Terrian. It looks like they'll settle it out as Maher will continue to cascade through the field. That mistake of going fuel only is really costing that 17 as he's way outside, nearly going to fall outside the top 15 here on this lap. Whew, let's try to catch our breath here for a minute as the battling is happening at the front between the Luminary.
David Durand is going around there in the middle of the pack, off the nose of, I believe that was Dylan Stipe, who also was wrecking off turn 4.
Caution. Caution is out. Number 4 on the day. Oh, that's trouble for Dylan Stipe, who was a playoff contender. That win at Talladega, much more important now, getting that win last week as, oh my goodness, we talked to Bronson. He said, let's hope for no cautions. Well, it didn't take long.
Yeah, and it looks like this happened partially due to the slower 17 machine. David Durand was in the middle 3 wide. Matt Dyer was actually the car on the inside, and Durand, I don't think he realized the 2 was down there. He just cut down in front of Matt Dyer, and then Dylan Stipe gets collected up along with Nick King in the 43, so it's a pretty good contact there. 28 of Nathan Hall also getting a piece of it.
Watch the 24 here into turn number 3. They're going 3 wide here, and I don't know, Seth. I think that 2, he kind of got loose there as you see the 20 get collected as well. I don't know. It looked like the 2 came up a little bit with a combination of the 24 coming down. Just a bad case, bad timing.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, we knew that they were going to be wadded up trying to make their way around the 17 machine who had much older tires than everybody else. And I think you're exactly right. 2 drivers wanting the same piece of real estate. And unfortunately, there's just not enough room for that. And I'm telling you what, you said it perfectly. Breathing the sigh of relief is Dylan Stipe, because if this had been a case where he hadn't won last week at Talladega, that would have been his championship hopes up in smoke. So because he locked himself in last week, he could afford something like this here tonight. But this almost wonders if we're setting a little bit of a trend, Carlos, because Bronson Stafford, he mentioned that, they're 20 points up on Shane Tyrion, but, if Tom Bourne, if Justin Munsell get involved in a wreck here and finish back outside of the top 20, there's no saying that they're locked into the Final Four yet.
There's no telling at all. As we watched on that replay, the reason the 2 got loose, he clipped the apron coming through 3 and 4, and that is what got him loose. And then with the 24 coming down, it was a bomb waiting to go off. So that's why we're working caution number 4. Everybody from 5th on back to Maher in 15th went fuel only. So the top 4. Ironically enough, all Luminary drivers, Bronson, Tom, Justin, and Shane, they all stay out here on this one.
And again, Tristan Maher in the 17 going with fuel only. The only thing that I'm assuming here, there's one of 2 things going on. I didn't take notice back during the first stage if Tristan Maher came down and took on tires or if he went with a fuel-only strategy. He may have already taken on one of his sets before we got to the end of the first stage, and may have taken on the second set there. So he might be trying to stretch as far as he can to save those final 2 sets for this final stage. Either that, or he's hoping that he can have 3 sets of tires down there waiting for him, or actually probably be 2 sets of tires still waiting for him, as opposed to everybody else 1 set, to have an advantage if we get a couple of late race restarts.
I think that's what he's waiting on. He's been up and down this season. We've seen him at the front early on, pre-Luminary coming into the picture, and then when they come into the picture, we haven't really seen them all that much, and that just shows you the power of this Luminary team. The top 4, as mentioned, Bronson, Tom, Justin, and Shane. 5th to 10th, Campbell. 5th, Jacob Grant, the pole sitter. 6th, Tyler Riggs. 7th, teammates and Alonso Chicano and Cam Caldwell, 8th and 9th, and then Travis Daly back up here in the top 10. Haven't seen him for a while. He's back up there. The next playoff driver is Brandon King, who's in 11th with Philip Scott in the 14th spot. That's all the playoff drivers still in contention. Cars out of the race. Derek Schilling, Deshaun Gorham, likely out of the race, still in the pits after 24 minutes, and then Evan Coleman and Robert Kennedy, they dropped out earlier on in this one. Driver that might fall out after this one might be Dylan Stipe because, well, he has really nothing else to race for. He's into the Final Four at Charlotte.
I'm also wondering about that 24 car of David Durand. He got some pretty good contact with the rear end of his Liberty University Chevrolet, even though he currently still is on the lead lap. And extended stay on pit road for the 28 of Nathan Hall, who pancaked the right side after that incident. He's fallen 2 laps down, still sits on pit road getting repairs done to his machine.
As the pace car lights should go out this time by, indeed they do. We will go back green with roughly 65 laps to go. I'm hoping I did my math right. I'm a mass comm major, not a math major, so give me a second, folks, to try and get that right. As I said, The top four, they're all luminary drivers. This is going to be interesting to see how they race each other, and this is going to be another double file restart. Everyone on the same playing field in terms of tires. The fuel strategy might be a slightly different now with a few laps between the top four and the rest of the pack, but shouldn't be anything that affects the long scheme of things. What do you expect to see here, Seth?
I'm not really sure. I mean, you're right. 65 laps to go and we go back green. So we know they're going to have to make at least one more pit stop in this race, whether it be under the green or under the caution. But I'm really interested about this top four because you're right. They're all teammates. But at the end of the day, they all want to be going to Charlotte next week to battle for the championship. And if Shane Tyrion wins, one of the three luminary teammates ahead of him are not advancing to the final four. So, right now, I know that all four of them want to make sure that a luminary driver wins this race, but at the same time, I think you're going to see Stafford, Bourne, and Munsell maybe race Shane Tyrion the hardest they've raced him all season because they've got to keep that 83 out of victory lane.
Green flag back in the air. Looks like Jacob Grant spun the tires there. Maybe Tom spun the tires as well, as Campbell got a really good launch off of that restart right up to the back bumper of Munsell. Single file amongst the top three. They're going to battle for the fourth spot. They're going to battle further back as well, as they're going to try and keep it steady. They got a slow car ahead. That was a car trying to catch. I believe that's actually Dylan Stipe that's returned to the racetrack here, as they're single file among the top five, but they're door-to-door. Sap loose is the 61. Here comes the 98 of Munsell and the 83 of Terrian.
And now you got Gerald Campbell. He's going to tie to the top side, and they're catching up that 20 machine, and they're going to catch him in 1 and 2. Hopefully it'll be off of turn 2 as Munsell to the inside, trying to get the advantage off the second corner. He might be clear on the back straightaway, and he is.
He's almost clear. Now he's clear. Here's the 83 of Terrian going to run the 61 up the racetrack. They were 4 wide back there, and they somehow settled it out out of turn number 2. So catch your breath there for a bit. So move the 98 to the lead. Luminary is back 1, 2, 3, 4. Campbell with the good jump on the restart, not able to hang on. He is now under fire from the Jacob Grant machine. They're going for that 5th spot, the pole sitter. He's been laying in the weeds, our winner back at Atlanta.
I would have loved to have known what happened there on that restart, because you're right. 2 drivers in that outside line did not get going. Tom Bourne, the 54, and Jacob Grant in the 7. It could just be a case of both of them spinning the tires, but it seems rather uncanny that both of them were in the outside groove when it took place.
Watching through here, still double file up here at the front. You can put a blanket over the top 10 almost. Jesse Powers lingering back there as Terrian finally loses that battle with Stafford. Bourne going to try on the inside, caught the apron a little bit, so that's going to lose some time for him. And now Stafford can set his sights back on the race leader, Justin Munsell. Terrian trying to use the outside, not using the apron to try and get around Tom Bourne. Not going to work. Campbell or Jacob Grant will try to come into the picture now and break up this luminary party in the front.
Grant trying to go coast to coast, started on the pole, trying to close out the deal with a victory. He's been up in the top 10 all day long, but really after we saw him lose the race lead, he hasn't really looked like he's got the car to get back up there into the clean air out in front of this race. As that battle for the lead is still hot and heavy. Bronson Stafford put a move there on Justin Munsell. Then Tom Bourne put a move on Bronson Stafford. These luminary guys, they're slicing and dicing. Bronson's going to get into Munsell. And they're both going to wreck, baby. What a save. 5 wide through 1. Now Campbell gets clear.
Wreck. There we go. There we go. Caution is out. Oh, my goodness.
That was a wreck that started in turn 1. It took till turn 2 to actually bring out a yellow.
And it, again, between teammates. The 98 of Munsell, the one getting the big hit here. Looks like he's all right. I'm sure he's got damage, and I'm sure he is not happy with his teammate Bronson Stafford. I would not want to be in that voice chat right now between those guys, but oh my goodness. Last week at Talladega, a wreck going on nearly 200 miles an hour took every luminary driver out of the picture. And in this case, it's a little bit better, but because there's not horrible damage to a lot of them, but holy cow.
Well, so I'm looking at the setup for this pass going into turn 1. I mean, it's clear the 61 made the move sooner than the 98 came down to block. So I know that Munsell's obviously going to have a little bit of an issue that he's now got that damage on the left front, but to be fair, I think Bronson Stafford pulled a pretty clean pass down to the inside. 98 just didn't time the block quickly enough.
Now watch here. You'll see him. The 61 dove, and yeah, the 98 didn't time the block. They saved it 5 wide, as you said. Then the 31 got turned by the 61 and came down into the 98. So really, the worst loser out of this is that 31 at Campbell, who had a really good car today. And that ended up hurting him. We'll take a couple looks at this, but my goodness, high drama at the front of the field. With the way they were racing, you knew it was bound to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no doubt about that. These guys up in the top 3 were racing each other like it was the last lap. I'm going to inherit the lead out of this, but I'm a little worried now about that 98 of Justin Munsell. It's not nearly the extreme damage that we saw Mike Tellier get in the early stages of this race, but it is damage nonetheless around that left front quarter panel just above the wheel, and we know just how important aerodynamics are here, so I would be curious to see the speed that we're going to find out of that 98 machine for the remainder of this race, because, again, if Shane Therian wins this race, another of his luminary teammates are not advancing. And I think right now, based off the stage points accumulated in the first 2 stages, Munsell would be that driver.
As I was watching back through that replay that second time, a lot of drivers made some really good moves. Jacob Grant, first off, on the extreme high side, got a little bit of rear damage, but kept going after a hit from Alonso Chicano. Cam Caldwell, he avoided it really well. One guy that really avoided it well, that was Travis Daly, splitting guys like he's a running back in the NFL. Coming out in 5th out of all that. Restarted 10th on the last restart. So, wow, good move out of the 15 of Travis Daly, who started 3rd today. So, let's try and catch our breath here. 2 cautions, basically back-to-back. And pretty quick, one that happened further in the field for caution number 4, and then up at the front for the 5th caution, involving playoff contenders.
We're just going to see more of this, I honestly believe, because, there's a championship on the line for some of these drivers to advance to Charlotte next week. At the same time, there's drivers out here that they just want to go out there and win. We've seen 3 wide and 4 wide racing all the way through the pack here in the first 2 stages, and it is just ramped up here since we started this 3rd and final stage. The thing now that I'm kind of wondering about are some of these drivers back here that are also in must-win situations. Philip Scott, he was able to get through that incident without contact. He's right now in the 11th position. So, could this be one of our Cinderella stories in the making from a driver snagging a Final 4 position at the conclusion of this race? We now have some drivers that have run into some issues for some other playoff contenders in Stafford and Munsell. So, this thing isn't over yet. Tom Bourne, Shane Therian, yeah, they're up here, but we still could see some calamity take place with them in these final, 55 laps.
And after looking through, it was really only cars that were further back or had damage that came down in pit. No one in the lead really came down to pit. So we're going to go back green with 55 laps to go. As Seth said, we're closing in on that window where they could try and make it to the end, but they're still going to have to pit one more time, will these leaders. Tom Bourne and Shane Therian, they will restart 1-2. They're going to have Jacob Grant and Cam Caldwell run 3rd and 4th behind them. Travis Daly, he'll restart 5th. Bronson Stafford 6th. Jesse Powers and Tyler Riggs, they've worked their way back up here. Matt Dyer, who was running well in stage 1, he's up here as well. He's going to restart 10th with Belmonte in the 9th spot. Like you said, Philip Scott, he's going to restart 11th here. Brandon King 15th. With all the things happening behind him, Mike Tellier's gotten up to 19th, but he's still 2 laps down to try and pull off some sort of miracle. But with the damage he has, it's likely not going to happen. Well, we had a pretty crazy couple restarts after caution 4 and the stage break. Let's see if we have a third one. Will the hat trick happen of crazy restarts? Pace car will make the left-hand turn in. Tom Bourne is now in control of the field in the FRN Toyota. Green flag in the air. Got a good jump on Shane Therian, but Caldwell is hanging in there. Grant's going to try and give the Therian car a push, but he'll now duck to the inside and leave Therian all by himself.
Therian did not get a bad restart. It's just that Caldwell got a better one, and Therian almost got into the left rear quarter panel of Caldwell there through 1 and 2.
Made a bold crossover move, big move out of him, and then now here comes Bronson Stafford. Doesn't look like that wreck hindered him much at all. He's up into the 4th spot now, 2 wide, further back amongst everyone else, as now Caldwell settles in, and Grant is in the grass off the nose of Daly. Looks like he'll bring it back on safely. Maybe. Don't know. Great save out of the pole sitter.
Oh, we got a contact, but a save by Matt Dyer. He and Philip Scott got together. Scott now gets on the apron, up into Campbell. That's Chicano going to the apron. Peck
were
goes
5
to the
wide.
apron. Somehow they all make it through.
They were 5 wide for a moment down the back straightaway there, and they kept it going. So kudos to them as looking through here. That's a lap car, I believe, actually trying to work his way through. That's... Is it a lap car? No, it's not. That's Bob Carroll up there running pretty good as Brandon King's in a 3-wide situation right now. Oh, Campbell got him a little loose there further back, but it looks like he'll hang on to it, and they'll keep on trucking. Another car on the wall further back is David Duran, but they keep it clean and green. Battle is on for the 3rd spot. Bronson Stafford moves up to 3rd. He is now sitting behind Bourne and Terrian with Caldwell breathing down his neck. Tyler Riggs, after all that shuffling, he is now up to the 5th spot. Fastest car on the racetrack.
Yeah, how about Tyler Riggs? Great run out of that 26 machine, currently holding down a spot inside of the top 5. Haven't really talked about him all race, and that's because he spent most of it from about the 7th to 15th position. But now he's up here when it matters, and starting to see some of these drivers that had issues earlier on starting to work their way back up to the front. Justin Munsell in that 98. He was actually in the middle of a 3-wide situation just prior to Jacob Grant's problem on the front straightaway. Looks like his speed is still there trying to hold off Justin Belmonte. The problem is for the 98, he just doesn't have the track position he had before.
He doesn't, as the battle is going to happen here for the 4th spot. Maybe Caldwell slams the door again, and they keep on trucking as it looks like they've all spread out pretty well, so that might calm things down a little bit, but don't look now. Things can change in a hurry as now Riggs gets the run on the inside, trying to get past the 10 of Cam Caldwell. Caldwell, one of the newcomers. Caldwell trying to pinch the 26 down, but the 26 already had the advantage through those corners, so move Tyler Riggs up to the 4th spot. Another driver laying in the weeds here. That's the 44 of Jesse Powers. Had troubles there in stage number 2, but now in this 3rd and final stage, he's got himself back into the top 10.
Absolutely. I mean, pit road has not been his best friend, but he's been fast nonetheless, as we had an issue for one of our playoff contenders. Philip Scott off of turn 2, got up into the wall, much like we've seen other drivers do, darted down towards the infield grass, but he was able to keep it on the apron, keep it straight, but it's dropped all the way back to 16th position, so more added damage to the right side of that Ninja Works Ford Mustang.
Battle in the top 10 around playoff contender Justin Munsell. Belmonte and Daly in a spot right now. Munsell going to try and see who to follow here. Likely might follow the 12. No, he might be able to make a pass of his own. He's going way to the bottom of Travis Daly, nearly getting into the grass there, but he hangs on to it. Good move out of the 98, showing that that damage didn't really hinder him all that much. Now he's back up into the 8th spot. Brandon King right behind him, a playoff contender. He is in the 10th spot. At the front, Tom Bourne has opened up a little bit of a lead here on Shane Terrian with 48 to go, 47 to go at the line.
And I have to wonder now with these couple of cautions that have come out in this 3rd stage, if that's kind of played a little bit of a curveball into potential pit strategy that these drivers would have had, because we saw Shane Terrian, he went with the early strategy of coming to pit road back in stage 1. Bronson Stafford did it back in stage 2. Now, with this caution coming out, some of these guys are kind of intermingled in how far they can make it on this run. Right now, Tom Bourne, Bronson Stafford, Shane Terrian, they're going to be down pit road somewhere in the next 5 laps, I would say. Other drivers behind them, though, can stretch in another possibly 10 to 15 laps. So definitely could see some shuffling up here as we close in on 45 laps to go.
And, you know, I'm not rightfully confident that we're done with yellows yet. I don't think we're done because these guys, they've been aggressive all night long. I know they're spread out right now, but anything can happen here at a track like Chicagoland. Jesse Powers just made a pass past Cam Caldwell. Now move the Powers machine up into the top 5. These guys, Riggs and Powers and company, they're running very similar lap times to our race leaders. The problem is, it's the same thing. They're running similar lap times to the leaders, so they're not able to make up as much ground as they would like.
Yeah, that's just the big thing here. It seems like a lot of the drivers now up inside of the top 10 have kind of leveled themselves out. which is surprising me, the fact that we're still seeing everybody run down there on the bottom of the racetrack, then let it slide up off the corner. I would have thought maybe someone would try migrating up to that middle or outside line, see if there's some speed to be found up there. Apparently, those lanes are not viable for these drivers currently to make up any speed whatsoever. I mean, they're even cutting down nearly to the infield grass on the front straightaway, taking the extreme short way around.
Stafford trying to set his teammate Shane Terrian up here for a pass that's allowed Tom Bourne to pull away just a little bit. I've been watching very closely over the last couple of laps. The 89 of Brandon King, he is right on the back bumper of Belmonte here. He's going to make a pass, trying to make a pass here, can't make it there. But that last time by, he had run better laps than any of our top four. I wonder, did he take tires under the last pit stop?
He might possibly have. It's hard to tell here based off our telemetry because he did spend a little bit of extra time on pit road getting some damage repaired as well. But he could very well have taken on a set of his Goodyears there under that pit stop.
He's got two cars right now in his crossfire right now to try and make passes. He's going to try and close up on here. This is the thing that's hurting him right now, is because he's dealing with these two guys. They're going to be battling with each other before long. And no, don't look now. He's got Tyler Riggs and Jesse Powers in the picture as well. So Brandon King might be trying to be the late bloomer, trying to get into the picture and battle with those top three. You never know what can happen, because, you know, Justin Munsell, he was battling with these guys a bit ago, but he has fallen off tremendously. Now a second and a half behind the back end of the top eight.
And from what I remember, too, the last race that I called here for Clutch Drop, Brandon King actually qualified on the pole and then started to fade back. And it didn't seem to be one of those drivers that was all that good as far as conserving his tires. It looks like he's actually been able to do that here, been able to have one of the better long-run cars despite being outside of the second half here of the top 10.
Oh, Belmonte got loose and up into Caldwell, and that hurt Brandon King too, as that has killed all the momentum that the 89 was going to have. He had to slow down and check up to avoid the 12, and all that momentum he had just went out the window, and now he's got to try and make it back up.
Great save there, though, by both the 12 of Belmonte and the 10 of Caldwell to not have an incident off of turn 4, but yeah, you're right. All three of them kind of had to check up and lost momentum. Now what was nearly a three-car battle for the 6th position has really spread out.
One car slow on the apron. I believe that was the 17 of Bob Carroll. He's coming into the pits right now to get service. Now he'll fall a lap down off the lead lap. Second car 1 lap down to the 22 of Gary Peck, as the 22 never really recovered from the early pit road miscue that he had. With a second lead for Tom Bourne and Shane Terrian, we're going to take our final break of the evening. When we come back, we will take you to the checkered flag here at Chicagoland. Tom Bourne owning a very nice lead right now. Actually, we're not going to go to break because Terrian's in the pits.
And while we aren't cutting away, I'll update you as well on what happened with the 27 of Bob Carroll. Came down pit road after he got put up into the wall off turn 2 by the 95 of Alonzo Chicano. So what was looking like a great day for Bob Carroll, maybe his best finish of the season, it has gone south in a hurry.
Terrian into the pits here with just under 40 laps to go this evening, as he's trying to get all the service that he can. Kind of an extended stay for Shane Terrian. A 14-second stop for the 83. Another playoff contender, Brandon King, he's coming down as well.
Well, the thing that I'm kind of wondering about here with Shane Terrian is we know that the fuel window is about 32, maybe to 34 laps. The question I'm wondering, is this too early to come to pit road?
I said, oh no, because Brandon King slightly overshot his pit stall. Another mistake for the 89. A fuel-only stop, it appears, for the 89 of King. Leaders are in.
I'm Bourne, Bronson, Stafford. You're right, going to pit from first and second place. So I guess the fuel window is open for these guys. I guess they could go a little bit further than we originally projected, if indeed they can make it the rest of the way here. The thing I'm wondering about, though, coming to pit road this early, there is the potentiality that these guys could have some overtime green-white checkers. I don't think they'd have enough fuel for that.
If the overtime comes into picture, I don't think they would. A 14-second stop for Bourne, 14 and a half for Stafford. Bourne beats Stafford out of the pits. And now we come to the point where the leaders right now, Tyler Riggs, Jesse Powers, they can go a little further and definitely can make it to the end on fuel, even with overtime periods happening. And like I said, the cautions, that's still likely. We've seen some spells under this green flag run where they could run into some trouble. Out of all of that, that has put Shane Terrian, believe it or not, in the catbird seat right now to retake the lead once things cycle around.
Now for Shane Terrian, Tom Bourne, Bronson Stafford, obviously they had some pacing laps there with our 2 cautions in this third stage to be able to save a little bit of fuel, but they actually went 42 laps on their run. I don't think that's exactly how far you can go if you ran every single lap under green flag conditions, but if we kind of use that as a template, Tyler Riggs, Jesse Powers, Cam Caldwell, Justin Belmonte, and Justin Munsell, your current top 5, we probably won't see them on pit road for another 5 laps or so.
So we'll keep it here for the time being. You're watching your current leader right now is Jacob Grant. He is ducked out of the top 10 and is in the pits right now. As Riggs is leading, Jesse Powers in second. Man, wouldn't they love a yellow right now?
Absolutely. Right now, they would love to be able to trap a lot of the front runners a lap down. Terry and Stafford, Bourne, those drivers would have to rely on a wave around to get back on the lead lap, and it could completely turn this race on its head because you mentioned it. There were drivers in the second half of the top 10 that were still turning laps similar to the race leaders, so we know they've got the pace to hold them off.
Going to be watching here is Philip Scott. He is, Nick King. He has come down and pit. And really, I think that's what's going on in the minds right now of our top 5 of Riggs, Powers, Caldwell, Munsell, and Daly. And then you can throw Campbell into the mix as well as he's hanging in there. They're wanting a yellow, but believe it or not, here comes Terrian around Tyler Riggs to unlap himself and put himself back on the lead lap.
And there you see the difference of fresh tires and old tires. Remember earlier we saw Terrian had come to pit road and still ran right around drivers that hadn't come to pit road because they were equal on tires. Terrian took on a set, as did Bronson Stafford and Tom Bourne on their pit stop, and they are turning very fast laps times because of it. Here come the top 3 to pit road.
Top 3 in. The only ones that stayed out were the 98 and the 31. So we're waiting on 2 drivers to come down and pit. This pit stop here for Riggs, Daly, and Powers and Caldwell, this should be enough to get them to the end of this one.
Now, Munsell and Campbell, they both came down pit road under the last caution, obviously, since they were involved in the wreck. They can go another 6 to 7 laps on what they've got in the tank.
So he hits the line, does Munsell, 29 laps to go. Man, wouldn't he love a yellow? I don't know if he would love a yellow because his teammates, they're back all on the lead lap now after all of that. So, but a yellow comes out, that could really trap a plethora of cars off the lead lap and would have to rely on a wave around and then have to start behind everybody. So watching here, Munsell gonna stay out another lap here. So it looks like it's gonna be the same for Campbell as well.
Philip Scott and Matt Dyer, they were just on pit road. Mike Tellier on pit road now, along with David Duran. So we're really only waiting for 4 more drivers to come down pit lane for what we're assuming is going to be their final stop of the day. Munsell and Campbell first and second. Gary
Munsell got the wall. Munsell's off the racetrack.
Wow, he got it pretty good there with the right side of his machine, too. And that's not the first time we've seen him get up close to that wall and scrape it off turn 2. Saw him have that same issue back in the second stage of the race, and now he's coming to pit road.
Oh, I don't know if he's going to be coming in too hot. He's got to get it woed down. It looked like he did. And he'll come down and get the service. He knows his car is not handling the way it wants to. And now we await on the 31, Gerald Campbell.
Campbell, really the only thing that he's had an issue with since getting involved in that wreck that brought out our last caution has been that rear spoiler. The left rear area is stuck up into the air. It's kind of been serving a little bit as a parachute and causing a little bit more of a loose sensation in the corner than normal. But that's the only bit of damage that he really sustained. So I think his pace is still good. Problem is, though, he's losing a lot of time to drivers that have already been to pit lane.
As you see Belmonte unlap himself, Tyler Riggs and Cam Caldwell, they're going to be the next couple that try, and Campbell got into Riggs!
That's teammates there that got together out of PRC Esports.
Oh my goodness.
And now there's front-end damage on Tyler Riggs, who had just been to pit road. You can see the damage there to the left front of his machine.
Something about teammates today with the luminary issues that seemingly don't matter anymore as they're still all running well outside of Munsell. And now between the PRC Esports drivers of Riggs and Campbell running into trouble, that moved Riggs back to 8th. And I think if I'm Gerald Campbell, I better get off the racetrack right now and try and pit.
Yeah, I mean, you saw right there the closing rate between the two teammates, the older tires of the 31 of Campbell and the fresher tires of the 26 of Tyler Riggs, and there was just no reaction time. The closing rate is so kind of spur of the moment. Tremendous job by Campbell to be able to hang on to that thing, but I think still he can stay out there for another 3 or 4 laps, and he's going to run it until it's completely out of fuel for 2 reasons. Number 1, he might get a caution and be able to gain some track position. He would be, I believe, around 9th place if we end up having a caution now and he came to pit road. The other reason is that way he can take on the least amount of fuel possible, less time spent on pit road.
He hits the line, 23 laps to go in this race. When he comes out, it'll cycle the lead over to Shane Terrian, who owns a 2.5-second lead over his teammate in Bronson Stafford. We said that if Terrian wins, it likely will knock Munsell out of the picture. Saw a car get out of shape on the back straightaway. Don't know who it was, but looks like they're okay. It looks like it was the 15 of Daly as he's off the racetrack, sideways on the racetrack. This might bring out a caution if he's not able to get it off the racetrack.
Got a lot of oncoming traffic trying to get it down, maybe to bring it to pit road, and no, looks like he will stay out. Oh, no, he's going to bring it down onto the apron on the front straightaway. Definitely off the pace, but no caution coming out for that one.
Oh, that might have been the saving grace for Campbell. I thought he was going to turn sideways when he came back up the racetrack. Kind of in an odd way for the 15. I don't know if he had control over his car or anything, but a guy that was running pretty well today, running into some trouble with that, and with that, that is going to put the 31 into pit lane, and that'll hand the lead back to Shane Terrian.
It was a battle gone wrong for the 10th position between Jacob Grant and Travis Daly, as it looked like Grant just pushed up the track, putting the 15 into the outside wall. And as we've seen all day, when you get up into that outside wall, the driver instinct is to turn to the left and get it off the wall, and it directs you down to that infield grass.
As Terrian just gets around the 2 of Matt Dyer, putting him off the lead lap. That's going to leave us with 16 lead lap cars remaining. With Terrian.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, this is why you can't count out Shane Terrian. I called a race a couple of months ago where Shane Terrian started the race 2 laps down because he missed the start. He ended up getting enough lucky dogs to get back in the lead lap. He got back on the lead lap in the second half of the race, went on to win the thing. Shane Terrian is one of those drivers where you put him in an impossible situation and he's going to rise to the occasion. And as we said, no stage points in the first and second stages of this race. Must-win situation in the final stage, and look where he is with 20 laps to go.
When he hits the line, it'll put 19 laps to go in this race. The lap machine of Matt Dyer trying to hang with him here to get back on the lead lap, barring a late race caution. Either way, he'll be on the lead lap if he just hangs where he is right now, unless Terrian continues to pick off race cars. The next car he's going to catch is playoff contenders in Brandon King and Philip Scott, and if they go a lap down, their chances are all but gone with 19 to go.
Battle going on. About 3.5 seconds behind him is for second place. Tom Bourne's been able to close the gap up between himself and Bronson Stafford right on the back bumper of the Cineplex Toyota. Loses a little ground there through 3 and 4, but definitely looks like Tom Bourne's got a little bit faster of a race car. So this is basically the battle to see who's going to be the one to try and get up there and wrestle this win away from Shane Terrian. Obviously, both of these drivers, I think right now, would love to see a caution come out because then that would close up the gap for them.
Other drivers trying to stay in the picture, Cam Caldwell, Jesse Powers, they're 4th and 5th right now, but we got our eye on this battle for second, and before long, we'll have to go back to the leader as Stafford got loose through the corner. Here comes Tom Bourne.
Stafford way up the track there, out of turn 4. Tom Bourne saw the door open, tried to stick his nose in, couldn't do it this time. We'll see if he sets him up for turn 1. Right on that right rear quarter panel, going to get a nice run up the top side. Look at that.
What a move by Tom Bourne, and I think Stafford's like, all right, I'll let you have that one. We're both likely going to the playoffs with Shane, so let's see if we can try and go and run him down now. But that cost them a lot of time. The gap at one point between Stafford and Terrian was 2.5 seconds. Now it's doubled to 5 seconds.
Yeah, when we got to the conclusion of the second stage, we were looking at Tom Bourne, Bronson Stafford, and Justin Munsell to join Dylan Stipe in the Final Four. All of a sudden, we've shifted gears as Tyrion looks like he may be replacing Munsell in the Final Four. Munsell right now with that right front damage, mired back in the 8th position.
Brandon King got the wall in 3 and 4. That's going to take him out of the lucky dog spot. If we get a caution, that moves Dyer back into that position. As Philip Scott, he's trying to stay as far away as he can from the race leader, Shane Terrian. I'm wondering what's going to happen with this back end of the field here, how hard they're going to race the leader.
I'm telling you right now, I'm going to throw a whole monkey wrench into this playoff scenario. I'm being told the 83 of Shane Terrian is short on fuel. If he does not get a caution here in the final 15 laps, he could be in trouble.
He's got a 5-second lead to work with if he wants to try and maybe clutch it through the corners to try and get as much fuel as he can. Do you know how many laps he's short?
I don't know for certain. Now, he did come down pit road 2 laps prior than Tom Bourne and 1 lap prior than Bronson Stafford. So since we don't really know the number, there is maybe a possibility that all 3 of these luminary drivers could be short on fuel.
And with an overtime possibility looming, they're definitely going to need a caution to come out to try and pack it full of fuel and then get back out there. And if that's the case for the top 3, who's in the catbird seat? It's the 44 of Jesse Powers who'd be in the catbird seat if all 3 of them were to drop.
Trying to think here, based off of what we knew for the fuel window, we were told that the max they could go on green flag laps was 34. Shane Terrian right now projected would be running out of fuel with 4 laps to go, Bronson Stafford with 3 laps to go, and Tom Bourne with 2 laps to go, if indeed 34 is the furthest they can make it. And I'm hearing right now the 54 barely can make it. It's close for him. Bronson Stafford, so he would be about 1 lap short of fuel than Tom Bourne, so it's big question marks here for the top 3.
Fuel strategy playing big right now, and you know that's even bigger if Terrian, Bourne, and Stafford run out of fuel, because Powers and Caldwell, they're half a second between each other. They're only a second and 6/10 off of Stafford, so if they run up on them here towards the end of this thing, that could mean big trouble for the leaders here. A lot of drama happening here. Of course, it all goes out the window if we get a yellow in these next 10 laps.
And going back to Jesse Powers and Cam Caldwell, they don't have to save. They are good to make it on fuel because those 2 came down pit road 7 laps after the top 3 did. So they can just mash the throttle and turn as fast laps as they want to because they've got the fuel to make it.
Indeed they do. And we come to the line. 10 laps to go. I know right before Terrian came into the pits, we were going to take a break. The break's out the window now. We're going to keep it going here to the checkered flag in this one. Shane Terrian, with the big drama developing, him potentially, more than likely, short on fuel, needing a yellow in these last 10 laps before the white flag for him to have a chance to hang on to this win.
I'm hearing confirmed 4 laps short on fuel for the 83 machine, so he needs a caution to come out between now and the next 6 laps, or else his hopes of going to Charlotte in the Final Four would be going out the window.
9 laps to go. He's got the lap machine. Philip Scott just ahead of him. Same with Travis Daly up there. Gerald Campbell, he's just ahead of them with the damaged goods. Onto the backstretch. Watching Bourne. Bourne hanging on. He's past Bronson Stafford laps ago. I'm still wondering. We need to get the confirmation on the 54 and 61 if the math doesn't add up.
Trying to see if I can get that confirmation here. The last I heard was that the 54 was barely able to make it, which kind of makes me wonder how that's possible if Shane Terrian was on pit road just 2 laps prior than the 54, and he's 4 laps short. Trying to see if I can get confirmation on the 61.
Looking ahead here, Jesse Powers and Cam Caldwell, they're catching up, and I think that's because the 54 and the 61 are trying to save right now. But they need to be careful and not let the 44 and the 10 get in front of them, because if that happens, then they have to play catch up to get around the 44, because I think in the 44 and the 10, I don't know if they rightfully know that the top three are short on fuel.
Well, if they don't know, they better be taking a look at their telemetry, because the 4th and 5th place cars of Power and Caldwell are running the fastest laps on the track right now. They are basically in no save mode. They are going for it. And I'm actually being told right now, we don't know the situation on the 61. His radio has been absolutely silent.
Wow, that's something. I guess he's trying to keep things steady and not worry about anything as the laps are ticking away. 5 now, 5.5 laps left. Terrian's window is shutting very quickly. He hasn't, to my knowledge, and just watching him here, he hasn't been clutching through these corners. He's just been driving the wheels off this thing. He's gotten around Daly and Scott as he hits the line. 5 laps to go for the 83.
You can't save. There's just no way you can save 4 laps here at Chicagoland. He's got to basically run this as hard as he can and wait until the thing runs out of fuel. But the only shot he's got, I got confirmation that the difference between Shane Terrian and Tom Bourne was that Tom Bourne actually started saving some fuel when he came off pit road on that final pit stop. So that's how he's able to make it the rest of the way, as here
Terrian's
comes the
coming
83.
And there goes the shot at Charlotte, up in smoke. And what this means is Tom and Bronson, they have a party coming to catch them. Jesse Powers and Cam Caldwell are coming.
Now the big question here is, which driver do you want to be with 4 laps to go? Because I'm assuming Bronson Stafford has been able to save enough since he let the 54 by and has kind of been running in Tom Bourne's tire tracks. And look at Powers. He's going to try and get around the both of them. So is it go time now for the 54 and the 61? Has their hand been forced? 3 laps to go this time.
I don't know if they're rightfully going to care, Seth, because with Terrian pitting, they're all in. Bourne, Stafford, and Munsell, they're in. They're just going for the win at this point, and it's the same mindset for Jesse Powers. He is right there. Don't forget about Cam Caldwell either.
Yeah, but for Tom Bourne and Bronson Stafford, they want the momentum going into the Final Four. They want to head into Charlotte saying, hey, I was the winner last week. I'm the guy you have to beat for this championship. So they are not going to give each other an inch here. Yes,
here comes Powers.
He's going to have a run there. On the top side is Powers, and then Caldwell right there as well. If these 2 luminary guys get side by side, look for one of these other drivers to maybe try and take them 3 wide.
Oh, baby, that's close. Powers up to the back bumper of Stafford. That's going to push Caldwell to the high side. What is Stafford going to do? Does he defend the cars behind him, or does he go for the win himself? No caution on the speedway, so it's down to this. The final 4 right now would be Bourne, Stafford, Munsell, and the, Dylan Stipe. Trouble here on the white flag as Powers has lost something now, put Caldwell into the 3rd spot.
Bronson Stafford backed up his corner a little bit there in 1 and 2 to try and get the run of the back straightaway. Where is he going to go? Does he go to the top? Does he go to the bottom? He's going to try the top. Caldwell's there.
He can't. 3 wide. 3 wide. Stafford to the bottom. Caldwell took the line way too high. Bourne's just going to screw over Caldwell to give Stafford the win.
Oh, he's out of fuel. 61's
he's out of fuel. Add on of that, Powers in the grass. Who's going to win it? Who won it?
Powers got it. He kept his foot in the throttle through the infield grass. Powers wins.
Holy Toledo, what a finish.
Bronson ran out of fuel off of turn 4, got into the 44 of Powers, and Powers just wheeled that thing through the infield grass across the line by half a second over Justin Munsell.
Are you kidding me? Have you ever?
Whoa, absolutely not. I thought the 61 had this race won. I'm wondering if Tom ran out of fuel through 3 and 4 as well.
I thought it was Stafford's race to win, and it just, frankly, all hell broke loose right there on the last bit of that one. Holy smokes. And for the first time this year, Jesse Powers is going to victory lane.
And how about that? We've got a non-playoff contender that wins the penultimate race. None of our final 4 are going to take the momentum of winning the next to last race of the season going into that finale.
The reason why I asked who won is because my ticker was bouncing up. It was Munsell for a minute. Then it was Belmonte. Then it was Caldwell. Then it was Stafford. And then out of it, Powers gets the win, and what a way to do it. In the grass. Does that count as a pass in the grass? I know Dale would be proud.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it counts as a pass in the grass. And I just can't understand how that 44 didn't spin out. The fact he was able to keep that thing straight to get to the start-finish line is beyond comprehension. Wheeling it through the grass was Jesse Powers. And hey, if you're going to pick up your first win of the season, what a dramatic fashion to do it. And I'm with you. I had to rely on my ticker because I was focused on the 44. All you could see was the 44 in grass. You couldn't see where everybody else was on the track.
We're going to go back and look at this well of a finish, arguably the finish of the year in the Clutch Drop Cup Series. I believe it. Powers was on the back straightaway, way behind the leaders of Stafford, Bourne and Company, and I think you're right in the fact that the 61 and the 54 ran out of gas, and I thought the 54 just moved up to try and stop Caldwell from winning this thing. And then you see the 61 shaking. He's out of gas. Then the 44 goes down. Caldwell's all over the place. Munsell and Belmonte coming in with a full head of steam. That angle didn't really show anything. And then Powers flying up the racetrack, somehow getting the win by half a second. I don't know how. We're going to have to take a couple looks at this thing. But my goodness, I don't know if I'm rightfully going to get a good angle for this finish.
I mean, I'm finding out here, Bronson did indeed run out of fuel off of turn 4. Tom Bourne actually started running out of fuel on the back straightaway. That's why he moved up out of the way to try and help the 61 be able to win, so that way Luminary at least ended off this race here at Chicagoland capturing a checkered flag. But as we saw there off turn 4, neither of those strategies worked. As I'm even going on board here with Jesse Powers and looking, and I'm not sure he expected he was going to pass the 61 there out of turn 4. All of a sudden, Bronson's car loses a tremendous amount of speed. Jesse Powers was still able to even keep his car above the white line to make the pass after the contact. And I'm watching this battle here to the line, and if he had spun it out, Justin Munsell would have been the one to pick up this win. And Munsell was running back in the 5th position down the back straightaway at the time.
That's the best angle I can show you for this finish. Right there at the line, in the grass, Jesse Powers picking up the win. We gave you an overhead shot showing that it was a lot further of a finish than originally thought. But Powers, in the grass, kicking up dirt and everything, and he escapes Chicagoland with the victory. Unbelievable finish to this race. What a way to do it, as we'll show you the victory lane look there, but we'll also show you the full finishing results on the screen. We'll get to talk to the top 3 in just a moment. Powers, the win. Munsell, he's into the final 4 in 2nd. Belmonte's going to get 3rd. We're going to get to talk to him. Cam Caldwell ends up 4th after that whole mess. Stafford and Bourne, they finish 5th and 6th. They're both going to the final 4 at Charlotte with the thing that happened with Terry and a tough break for Shane. 4 laps short of getting to the final 4. And I don't know if that's any more symbolic. Tyler Riggs gets 7th. Jacob Grant, the pole sitter, good finish in 8th. Nick King ends up in 9th. What a drive for him, who's been fighting internet issues the whole race. He ends up 9th. And then Gerald Campbell with an ill-handling race car ends up 10th. As we welcome you to the FRN post-race wind-down time for the interview portion of tonight's race. We got an interesting-looking top 3 here. Haven't really talked to much of them this season outside of Munsell, but we're going to talk first to the number 12 of Justin Belmonte, who ended up 3rd. Hey, Justin, this is Carlos and Seth in the FRN booth. You got us?
Yes, sir. How's it going?
Oh, my goodness. I don't know what to make of that finish. There was cars in the grass. You and Justin coming like a train trying to push through to get to the line as quick as possible. And you end up 3rd in the whole thing. You're not running for playoffs. You're just going for the win. What a run for you. You end up 3rd tonight. Give me your thoughts.
Yeah, that was a really crazy finish. I don't know. I think maybe the 54 might have ran out of gas, it looked like. And
he did.
Pecked everybody up and made for a crazy finish there. That was fun.
I mean, Justin, one thing that we saw early on in this race, and then even more so when you guys got to the third stage, was the craziness of the restarts. And it seemed like you were in the thick of it for most of those restarts in 3 wide and at some points almost 4 wide situations. We saw a lot of drivers have issues with the outside line, the inside line on the fresh tires. I mean, how scary was it being in those situations?
Oh, the restarts were crazy. I was just hoping to make it through them, get through the first 2 laps, and make a run at it. Getting stuck on the high side on the restarts was the worst. It felt like the inside line was like 10 miles an hour faster than you guys off the jump. It was tricky if you were up there. That's for sure.
I'm sorry. I'm still trying to collect myself from that heck of a finish. My goodness. And, coming down there, yeah, the 54 and the 61 ran out of fuel. The 83 4 laps before had to come down and pit just to try and salvage something. So when I'm sure you weren't aware of the issues with the 54 and the 61, was the chance for the win there for you when you saw everyone dropping like flies?
I don't think so. I knew the 44 we were on pretty much this similar schedule. He might have even pit after me, and the 98 pit after me as well. So I knew they were in front of me. They were just going to hammer down like I was thinking once I seen the 54 check up. So I kind of figured they would get it if anybody. And it turned out Jesse took it. So that was good for NSM Motorsports there.
Seth, do you have any final thoughts for Justin?
Yeah, just one final one here for you, Justin. I mean, first off, congratulations here on finishing third place. We saw that, it didn't matter if it was a non-playoff contender or a playoff contender that you were battling there. You were going to hold your position, and obviously it paid off. Next week, there's a championship on the line. Do you go into Charlotte, same mentality that you're going to just run your way up there to the front, try and see if you can finish out the season with a win?
I mean, yeah, I'm pretty confident. I'm not gonna get into anybody and really make any bad mistakes for anybody that's in the playoffs. Cause I don't want to do that, but definitely going to try for a win. I mean, that's the goal here. Finish out the season strong and get some good momentum.
All right, Justin, we haven't gotten to talk to you much this season. You've had a couple times up here, but before we let you go this evening, the floor is yours for any shout-outs.
I'll just thank NSM Motorsports. They gave us a good car here. We all worked together pretty tough this week to try to help Brandon out and give us a good setup, and they definitely pulled through. So thanks for that, and yeah, good race.
Alrighty, Justin, third place run tonight for the driver of the number 12 out of NSM. Best of luck to you going forward into Charlotte, and if you somehow find yourself in the top 3 again, we'll talk to you then. So you have a good rest of your week, man. Good night.
Thanks, man. Have a good one.
And we'll now talk to the second place finisher of tonight. Actually, you look at this, Seth. We have a JJJ top 3 this evening and 2 Justins. So we'll talk to the second one, Justin Munsell. Hey, Justin, this is Carlos and Seth in the FRN booth. You got us?
Yeah, I got you guys.
Well, it was looking like with 10 laps to go that your shot at Charlotte was up in smoke. But then we got the word around that time that Shane Terrian was short on fuel, your teammate, and then ultimately ended up being the 54 and the 61 out of fuel, and from being one of the last playoff drivers on the grid to the top finishing playoff driver of this race. Just tell me your thoughts. You're off to Charlotte.
Yeah, it was definitely a roller coaster of a race. Definitely the highs of leading and battling for the lead late in the race, and then definitely the lows of having to be in the back of the pack and facing elimination after having a strong car. So I'm glad to be on top of the roller coaster in this race and not have to worry about being eliminated.
Yeah, Justin, obviously we saw the situation that had you in almost what was looking like where you weren't going to be advancing into the Final Four, the contact between you and your teammate there and battling for the race lead. We saw you had that left side damage, started back there in the pack. How difficult is it as a driver when you're basically having to still keep yourself ready for restarts, getting ready for what was going to be that final green flag run, to mentally have yourself so focused on, there still is a chance. I've still got to do my job because something like the scenario we just saw could happen. I still could make my way into the Final Four.
Yeah, it's definitely tough. Like when the incident happened, I definitely wasn't in the right mindset. I had to kind of channel it back in to to run my lines, make sure I'm running the best I possibly can, because there was a period of time where I just wanted to mail it in because I thought I was done. I didn't think I had a chance, but once I got in the pits and saw that the damage wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, it gave me a little bit of hope. And I just basically played a different strategy than everybody else, and pit to get more fuel, went out longer on those tires and got fresher tires for the end. So I was able to run down the guys that were running out of fuel and give myself a chance for the win.
Now, you have to think that the difference between you ending up second and you losing and you winning the race was that the Jesse Powers didn't spin in the grass, and that was the reason why you ended up second. Now your focus shifts to Charlotte. The slate is clean. Set the points. Everyone's dead even. Top finisher wins. You have Dylan Stipe, the winner from Talladega, and then your teammates Bronson Stafford and Tom Bourne. I know the mindset is to go out and win, of course, or finish above everybody. What's the strategy, though?
Let's go win this thing. I don't feel like you could be a champion without winning the thing, so let's go do that.
Can't get any better than that. Seth, final thoughts for Justin?
Yeah, just one final one here, Justin, that I was kind of wondering about, because we saw most of that race in the first two stages. You were running up there second, third place. Then we saw you back in traffic. Now, I know that the damage may have played a bit of a factor, but did you see a difference in how the car handled being in clean air as opposed to being back in that traffic?
Yeah, I think this is one of the first races that I can think of where clean air was actually king, where when you are by yourself, the car handled it significantly better, at least with the way we had the vehicle adjusted. It was that way. But when I was in traffic, yeah, there's definitely a bubble that you hit with other drivers where even if you're faster, you're still going to struggle to pass them, because if you don't break that bubble, you're just going to stay usually about 5 to 6 tenths away from them and kind of just stay plateaued.
Alrighty, Justin, as you know, here at FRN, we like to give the drivers an opportunity to shout out. So who would you like to shout out this evening as we'll get ready to let you go?
Yeah, even though we had some adversity today, I still want to shout out my entire team at Luminary. Bronson and I had that little incident, but he set up these cars for the last few months, and he's been killer. So I got to shout out him, shout out you guys for the awesome broadcast, and then shout out for Dylan Stipe and Mike Taylor and all the boys that run this league.
Alrighty, that's your second place finisher tonight, the 98 Tahoe Toyota of Justin Munsell at Luminary Racing. You're off to Charlotte, man. Best of luck to you. We'll see you then, man. Good luck.
Thank you.
And now we'll get to talk to our race winner, the underdog of this race. Kind of had an up and down day. We'll talk to him now, Jesse Powers. Hey, Jesse, this is Carlos and Seth in the FRN booth. You got us?
Yes, sir. I got you.
You were roughly a second and a half behind, basically out of the picture for the win on the back straightaway after Stafford got into you on the previous lap. And then making a move when the 54 and the 61 ran out of fuel, you made a move that Dale Earnhardt Sr. would be proud of. A pass in the grass to get the victory. You hung on to the car, and you get your first win of the year. Just tell me how you feel. How is it, man?
Oh, man, yeah, my heart's still racing. I mean, that finish was incredible. I saw them run out, and I tried going to the bottom, got into them a little bit, and it shot me to the infield. So, I mean, I'm wearing the Dale Sr. scheme for a reason, right?
Yeah.
No doubt about that, Jesse. I mean, man, we saw that the 83 couldn't make it on fuel. We saw the 54 and the 61 run out of turn 4 and turn 3 out of fuel. Were you aware of that situation, or did you basically not know that those drivers are in that situation until you got up on them?
I kind of figured something was going on when I came back out and was running them down pretty quick. I knew something, either they didn't take tires or they took fuel early, wasn't sure. But I started reeling them in. I knew it was going to be a really good finish because of the way everything was shaping up to be, but I did not quite expect that.
Now, of course, you're not running for the playoff run this year for the championship at Charlotte next week. You kind of, like I was talking to Seth throughout the race, you kind of had an up and down day. You found yourself mired back off, close to off the lead lap in the middle portion of the race, and then methodically you picked your way through, and then it puts you in a good spot. What happened in the middle part of the race that got you set back?
I need to practice on green flag pit stops. I messed up on pit stops quite a bit tonight, which put me back because I was able to run through the field on a green flag run, but every time I'd stop, I'd get put back 4 or 5 spots. So there's stuff I need to work on. I haven't hit the track yet today or this week until tonight. So I got to thank everybody from my team and SM for getting me a good setup, and Gary Peck for building a one hell of a setup to get me this far.
Hey, Jesse, we ended up talking with the Stage 2 winner, Bronson Stafford, prior to Stage 3, and I asked him, what's the strategy for the 80-lap sprint to the finish? And he said, obviously, it was to try and win and get the maximum points and everything, but it didn't really seem like he had a strategy in terms of fuel and pit strategy. Nobody could have predicted how many cautions we were going to have, when those cautions were going to fall. We had 2 of them early on the stage and then went green the rest of the way. Did you have a set strategy of kind of, if a caution fell here, I would come to pit road now, or I would stay out? Or is it something where you have to play it by ear, play it by the situation?
I had to play it by ear. I had a good crew chief in my ear the whole time, just telling me what to do. Basically, I was going to go to the pits 30 laps to go anyways to grab tires and fill up the rest of the way. So luckily it fell in my lap like that, and we were able to go take it.
And now you head to Charlotte next week. You're played a little bit of a spoiler today. You going to try it again next week, or is Charlotte not a track to your liking?
That's actually one of my better tracks as well. I think this is my 3rd race with this group. So far, so good. I mean, we're doing good right now.
Alrighty, Jesse, we have a tradition here at FRN to let the top 3 give some shout-outs. You kind of did already, but anybody else you want to give a shout-out to?
Yeah, I got to thank AWS Roofing, Gary Peck with the setups, NSM for allowing me to be a part of their team and carrying on this win.
Alrighty, that was your race winner this afternoon, or this evening, excuse me. Jesse Powers in the 44, picking up a huge victory here tonight. Like I said, passing the grass to get the victory here tonight. Best of luck to you in the season finale at Charlotte. We'll see you then, man. Have a good night.
All right, thank you, guys.
And that will just about do it here tonight from Chicagoland. We'll toggle through the rest of the finishing results. We showed you your top 10. Shane Terry, and right there in 11th, Seth, 4 laps short of a trip to Charlotte.
Yeah, tough break there for Shane Terry. And, I understand that he had to do something different, had to kind of go outside of the box, because with getting no points in the first 2 stages, he was in a must-win situation. Unfortunately for him, I think he was hoping that maybe a late race caution would come out and save him. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. So, one of the stronger cars of this season, and a driver that we may have already had pegged to be advancing into the Final 4 at the beginning of the playoffs, just barely going to miss out.
The other cars going to be missing out are right there on your screen as well. Philip Scott ended up 15th a lap down. Brandon King 16th a lap down. And then Mike Taylor had trouble from lap 1, having that incident with Robert Kenny. He ends up 18th out of all of it, so he made up 8 spots. So you got to give a call to him, our 3-time winner this season in that number 3. Rest of your finishing results, Dylan Stipe had nothing to race for. Ends up 22nd, 48 laps down. And then the rest of your finishing results. So that sets the stage for Charlotte. Your top 4 heading there is Dylan Stipe, the winner from Talladega, Justin Munsell, who finished 2nd today, Bronson Stafford, and Tom Bourne. 3 luminary guys against who other? The league admin, Dylan Stipe, going to the top 4 at Charlotte. Seth, what can we expect at Charlotte next week?
I'll tell you what, I think we can expect the unexpected, because these drivers here tonight, they had to deal with 180 laps. Next week, it's 240 laps under the lights at Charlotte. That is a long race, folks. So not only are these drivers going to have to deal with what's going to be 70 lap stages 1 and 2, and then, of course, that final run to the end, which is going to be 100 laps in total, but I think that they're going to have to deal with pit strategy. They're going to have to deal with knowing the situation of where their other 3 competitors are on track. But even more so, I think you're going to see the fatigue factor come into play. This is what's going to set you apart of whether you're a champion or not, because you've got to overcome a long, long race and be that one that's going to be there at the end to take that checkered flag. And it's interesting, Carlos, I was running over some numbers. We've only been to 2 other D-shaped 1.5 mile tracks here this season. None of our final 4 have been to victory lane at either Texas or Atlanta, and all three of them go in basically with the same advantage. They've all only won one race this season, so it's a pretty level playing field if you ask me. I think we're just going to have to sit back and watch and see who's going to be that one to either take that checkered flag or be able to outduel the rest of their competitors to hoist that championship trophy at the end of the night.
And I'm thinking it's going to be a case of just trying to outduel your competitors, because we've seen this year the non-playoff drivers so far in this playoffs, they have played a major factor. Non-playoff drivers almost won last week at Talladega. Dylan Stipe just hung on there at the end. And then you see it today here at Chicagoland. Jesse Powers, a non-playoff driver, just his third race here in the Clutch Drop Cup Series, and he goes to victory lane. And like we said, that sets the stage for Charlotte. But still got 3 events here on FRN coming before that one. A doubleheader for you on Wednesday night, 7 o'clock Central, 8 o'clock Eastern. The Dark Horse IndyCar Series, they're at that one of those D-shaped ovals Seth mentioned. They're at Texas in Fort Worth for that one. And then later that night, the Sarg Super Speedway Cup Series. They're going to be at Talladega for round number 4 in their series. That kicks off at 8 o'clock Central, 9 o'clock Eastern. And then another super speedway race, it's the Rolling Thunder Gaming Talladega Challenge. They are going to get round number 5, season 52 for them in the Talladega Challenge. That is coming up on Friday at 8 o'clock Central, 9 o'clock Eastern, and that sets the stage for Sunday night. It's the big game night, if you will. It's a couple season finales for a couple different leagues, if you will. We hope you come out and tune in. Same time, same great channel, 9 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock Central, right here on FRN, the season finale of the Clutch Drop Cup Series from Charlotte Motor Speedway, 9 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock Central. And, whew, Seth, what a race tonight. It was a pleasure to have you in the booth. It's been a long time since you and I have been in the booth together. It was a lot of fun, and we got shown a great finish.
No doubt about it. Great to be back in the booth here with you, Carlos. As you're right, it's a long time, and it's great when we're able to get together and call a race. And you're right, what a great one to set us up there for the Final Four. We knew Chicagoland was going to be one of those strategy races. Boy, we had no idea what was going to take place in those final 10 laps.
And that'll wrap things up here from Chicagoland Speedway. Big thank you to all of us here at FRN, to all of our friends here at FRN, Matthew Rodriguez, Matt Muir, of course, my colleague Seth Cole, all our other colleagues, Scott Rankin, Michael Norman, Anthony McCurry, everybody here at the FRN crew for all they do to put these races on for you guys. As I've ended a lot of broadcasts later this year, we're in tough times that we are in right now, still battling the coronavirus. All I ask is that if you're able to lend a hand of support to someone out there needs you this evening. We need each other to get through this time. For Seth Cole, I am Carlos Zimmerman. Thank you very much, and good night, and God bless from Joliet, Illinois. We will see you in Charlotte, North Carolina next week.